Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We are broadcasting live today from Enterprise Center because just moments ago we were able to be at Busch Stadium where Chaim Bloom introduced himself for the first time really in the official capacity as the Cardinals president of baseball operations to all of you, the fans. So we were able to be there. Now we are over at Enterprise Center where the Blues are on the ice today for morning skate. You'll love to see it. It's a busy day here in St. Louis on 101 ESPN. We have Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. Huge shout out to him for making himself available. Also Dewiit out here making sure that we are able to get things off without a hitch on the engineering side of things. All right, let's open up today. We have not talked today yet about what we just heard from Chaim Bloom. I am curious from the two of you what you took away from Chaim Bloom's press conference. He was available with Bill Dewiit Jr. and Bill Dewiit III. If you have missed anything that they said today, we will be playing cuts throughout the show and reacting accordingly. But I would like to start kind of big picture on what we learned today about where the Cardinals currently find themselves, how they view themselves as an organization. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. We also have the mic drop feature available for you guys. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. That's where the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature is because I want to hear from you throughout the day as well. It'll be an interactive show today on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's start out with you. What was your impression of the press conference today from Chaim Bloom, Bill Dewiit Jr., and Bill Dewiit III?
You know, I had to protect myself a little bit, like you do in a relationship when you go back into it, because at the initial stages of Chaim Bloom talking, when he was going through his kind of opening statement, I started to fall for it. Started to be like, oh, man, like saying the right things, like it felt like he was leading you down the path of what you wanted to hear. And we talked about it with Katie yesterday, clarity. But then as the press conference was happening, I'm like, stop it, Ferrario. Because to me, it was a lot of word salad. It was, he said all the right things. Everything that came out of Chaim Bloom's mouth was clarity, a little bit of direction of what they were hoping to accomplish. But all of it felt like it didn't mean anything until you start to see it happen. And frankly, they were going to go into this press conference for me that way no matter what. It didn't feel like I was going to hear something and be like, aha, he's going to fix this team in 2 years. He said the right things. He pointed in the direction of what they're hoping to do. He talked about how the Cardinals are a well-respected organization that isn't going to just throw in the towel and be bad for the next couple of years. But again, to me, sitting in that seat, the third row in the press conference at Busch Stadium, I'm like, this all sounds fine and dandy, but I don't know how much I truly believe it.
Yeah, that was kind of me. You know, I thought the prepared statement was very good from Chaim Bloom and what he was able to do and say. And, you know, there's not much that you can say, but I thought it was well prepared and kind of doing a good job of kind of outlining almost kind of like what he's been doing over the last 2 years here since we haven't been able to hear from him in that time frame. I think my biggest takeaway of it all, because I think a lot that was asked towards Chaim, was what Alex kind of said. It was kind of the word salad. He's not going to give you a lot, right? He doesn't want to give anything away for 29 teams, and he's going to keep it as generic as possible. I think the biggest thing was for me from ownership saying, hey, look, message received, right? I think it was Bill Dewiit III that was the first one that said that, and then Junior kind of reiterated, hey, we saw the attendance this year, message was received, and they said, hey, look, this year they didn't call it a failure, but they said it's not where we want to be, right? We don't want to be a team that's sitting here at home having this press conference in late September. We want to be a team that's back in the playoffs, and we want to be back there continuously, and that they understand that the fans are frustrated. You know, I think that's the first time that I've really heard them kind of say that publicly, or at least that I can remember in my mind. I think that was my biggest takeaway. Ownership has finally received the message from the fans that, hey, they are frustrated.
I liked the messaging from Bloom. And it's a different voice, and you can feel his passion, especially as he was opening up with his written statement. Like, you can feel it. It is different. And I think there's some value in that. Like, sometimes when you have a product that's just grown stale, all you have to do is change the packaging. You do nothing about the actual package or the actual product itself. You just change the packaging, right? You see this when you go to the grocery store sometimes. Your old favorite snack that you had, now suddenly it looks different. There's nothing different on the inside, but it looks different on the outside. And I think that's what we got today. I don't know that anything has tangibly changed about the way that the Cardinals are operating or who they are as an organization, but the packaging is different, and honestly, that's not such a bad thing. I think sometimes it's okay to just say, you know what, I didn't want to hear that guy talk anymore. For some of you, you feel that way about me on a day-to-day basis, where you just don't want to hear BK on the radio anymore. It's totally cool. Get it. I appreciate you bearing with us.
And as Bill Dewitt III said, message received from Ferrario.
Absolutely. But that being said, I think today that's all they can do. They did everything that they could, and specifically I'm speaking of Chaim Bloom. I did not think Bill DeWitt Jr.'s answer on the payroll was a very good one. Even if you haven't actually talked with Chaim Bloom about payroll, which I flat out reject. I don't know that I buy that whatsoever. But even if that's true, I do think maybe there should have been a different answer there when asked, hey, what is payroll going to look like? It felt very much like what it has been over the last 5+ years. And so to me, that was the biggest thing from today. I just wanted to leave that feeling different. And I don't feel bad about that. I think that's okay. I think that's how a lot of fans feel. And when I heard Chaim Bloom speak, I did feel different. It came off as like, all right, this is different. This is new. This is fresh. Even if the words are ultimately the same, it felt different when it hit my ears. And then when the DeWitts talked, it felt the same again. And so I was there was a lot of mixed emotions as I was leaving Busch Stadium.
Well, and I'll tell you this. I think from the DeWitts way, they actually handled the payroll thing perfectly because there's no follow-up, so I didn't talk to Chaim yet, even if he did BS it. I will say there was a sense of confidence from Chaim Bloom. There was a sense of like, I can do this, which you have to have in that position, especially when you're taking on this role. But the other part of me, and you're right, BK, like when the DeWitts talked, I had a different feeling because it truly felt like the DeWitts are living in denial. Like, again, they used the same phrase of we are a draft and develop organization. We've always been this, and now we are this. I think DeWitt also labeled the Cardinals as a mid-market team. Now, he did say, we've always done more than just what mid-market teams do, which hopefully they have that same mindset moving forward. But, man, when he said, like, we've always been a draft and develop team, it's like, no, you haven't. You drafted and developed Molina and Pujols, but you've never been a draft and develop team. You've been a acquire players from other teams and turn them into stars team. You've been we acquire stars on other teams at the right time and get them at the perfect time to where they're not the most expensive players in the league. But that was a part that it's like, man, everything Chaim's saying is great, but the two guys to your left and right still have one mindset, and I don't think that mindset is the proper direction for this team.
Yeah, that was one that did stick out to me as well because they haven't been that. But I will give Chaim some credit. He did kind of say, hey, we have to evaluate kind of talent from within, and then also said from outside the organization as well. So Chaim, I think, may have been hinting at kind of what we've been saying. You haven't been drafted and developed. You've developed talent and then sold it when it's at its highest, right? And I think that's what Chaim's trying to get to. I also thought it was interesting what he decided to say, and we'll react to all this, of course, the rest of the show. But I found it interesting when he was asked specifically, like, hey, what about that Rays model? What can you follow from that? He said, hey, look, we can't do the Rays model. We have to almost do our own model. And I thought that was very interesting because I kind of expected, because that was kind of the MO from him when he went to Boston. What are the Red Sox doing? Well, the Red Sox want to be a little bit more of an expensive Rays, but they want to do what the Rays were doing. And as we saw, it didn't work for Chaim there. So I found that answer very interesting. They're basically trying to get back to whatever the next version of the Cardinals way is. Now, we don't know what that is yet. Chaim probably needs the full 5 years of his contract to figure out what that's going to be. But I did think that answer was very interesting that he pushed back on, hey, we're not going to be the Rays model.
All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. Want to hear from you guys throughout the day. We'll mix in some of those with our reaction. How did you feel about Chaim Bloom's introductory press conference today as the new Cardinals president of baseball operations? That is where we're going to spend the vast majority of the show today. We are hoping to be joined at some point on the show by Chaim Bloom. It's kind of a play-it-by-ear situation. Not exactly sure when or if he'll be able to fit us in today, but the hope is that he will be able to do so. He's spending most of the day today just speaking with the media. But coming up next, I do want to talk a little bit about one of the first things that Chaim Bloom mentioned. What do the Cardinals look like when they are at their best, and how do the Cardinals go about winning again? We're going to talk about that coming up here on BK.
you're up.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We are broadcasting live from Enterprise Center today, where the Blues are on the ice for morning skate. We're going to get to Chaim Bloom and a couple of his answers here in just a moment. But, Alex, you said there was an interesting quote from Jim Montgomery just a little bit ago as he was talking at Blues practice.
Yep. For those that don't know, Stenberg is playing in the lineup tonight, and he's playing with Neighbors and Bukestad. And this is what Jim Montgomery told the media a little bit ago. Quote, I found for Stenberg in the beginning he complimented Thomas and Snuggerud well, and now he seems to be complimenting everybody well. I've really grown to like him more and more throughout camp. He also talked about his face-off ability and how that's the one thing he needs to focus more on, and he's been working with Steve Ott. But I've heard him talk very highly of Justin Carbonneau, and I've also heard him talk very highly now of Otto Stenberg, which might tell you a little bit of where they're at with him. I don't know if he makes the team out of camp. He's got a hell of an opportunity tonight playing with Neighbors and Bukestad, but he might be one of those guys that's falling into the first call-ups if something is needed throughout the regular season.
It's certainly an interesting thing to watch, something to monitor for sure. I wonder if that's a situation where he's the first winger and Dvorsky would be the first center that you see called up this season.
Yeah.
They clearly like a lot of their young players, though. We'll be able to see him in action tonight. You'll be able to hear all of that right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. On the Cardinals side of things, I did find some of the prepared remarks from Chaim Bloom to be interesting, and I always find these to be maybe the most revealing. I understand they're scripted, but that's why I find them to be revealing, because he actually spent time thinking about what he wanted to say, what his message would be for you, the Cardinals fans out there that are listening to this or watching it as it's made available. So the first one that I wanted to get to, and these are relatively longer answers, but I think it's worth hearing them in their full context. In Chaim Bloom's opinion, what do the Cardinals look like at their best? Go ahead and take a listen.
And to reflect on a couple of questions. Who are the Cardinals at our best? How do the Cardinals win? So I want to talk about those two questions first. Who are the Cardinals at our best? To me, it's simple. This organization at its best sets the standard for the rest of baseball. That's what set this organization apart for 100 years. Going back to when Branch Rickey literally invented the farm system a short walk from where we're sitting here today. To when George Kissel revolutionized how the game was taught. To when Whitey Herzog went all in on a style of play that set the tone for the sport for a decade. And to when, under the Dewiit family's leadership, this organization, including many people who are here, changed the way the industry thought about the amateur draft and about how to use information to make baseball decisions. That's our legacy here. That's who we are at our best. We set the standard. And that standard is always changing. It means something different in 2025 than it meant in 1925, or in 1965, or 2005. And it's going to mean something different in 2030.
10.
So now we get to do it again. That takes boldness to do things our way, not to fear being different if we think different means better.
If you believe him and take him at his word, they're going to be bold, they're going to be decisive, they are going to carve out their own path on what this is going to look like, and they plan to once again be a model organization in Major League Baseball. All these are buzzwords, right? Like, these don't actually have real meaning behind them unless they are backed by actions, but if you take him at his word, I find that to be really compelling. And I'm curious to see how they implement that into the game plan to get this team back into contention. However, I want to read you something real quick, Alex. I had this sent to me last night by a friend. Quote, the St. Louis Cardinals made the following announcement on Friday. Baseball is changing at an incomprehensibly fast pace, changing in ways that we can't even begin to completely comprehend, and our front office is going to change as well. The Cardinals would promote one of the game's best, brightest, and most successful general managers, John Mozeliak, to a role that is designated to understand, harness, and utilize these changes. That tells you that their owner, Bill Dewiit Jr., gets it. No surprise here, he always has. During his 21 seasons, the Cardinals have been one of baseball's gold standards for winning, class, and innovation. It continues from there. That was written on July 1st of 2017. So the reason that I bring that up today is because the Cardinals have said these things in the past. I have heard all of this before, and then what followed was they fell behind at a more rapid pace than ever before. So the Cardinals knew this was coming. We've always talked about this, T-Bone, on the show. You've mentioned it a number of times. How did everybody else in Major League Baseball see this modernization coming, and the Cardinals seemingly did not? I think it's clear they did see it coming. They failed to adjust. And so the path forward for Chaim Bloom and his front office will ultimately be this. Can you fix the issues that were existing under John Mozeliak in a way that they could not? They couldn't adjust on the fly. And now we get to find out with actions, not words, whether or not Chaim Bloom and his team are capable of doing so. So I found the comments to be really interesting. I just wonder, are they going to be backed by something? And this is not something he could answer today, but are they going to be backed by something tangible, or is it going to be more hollow words as we heard 8 years ago?
And that's where it felt like it was word salad. Now, if it's backed, then I think a lot of people have different opinions. But, I think fans might hear that and say, well, that's not going to happen because the Cardinals aren't going to spend money on the best free agents. But, I kind of look at this as a little bit differently. Like, if they're going to be trendsetters, or if they're going to be somebody that everybody else around the league looks at, they've got to do it differently. And I know we joke around and say, like, the draft and develop is not what the Cardinals have been, but it's pretty obvious that that's where a lot of teams are going to have to focus in on. And there's no question that they've made strides in fixing their minor league system. Now, to what extent, we don't know the behind the scenes, but at least talking with people, it sounds like they've invested heavily in terms of the people that are in charge, the coaches and the instructors, and they're most likely going to be adding more this upcoming offseason. That, to me, is where I think they can pounce on it. And Chaim said something in that press conference that matches this. He said, our direction is continuing to develop championship caliber players so that we continue to churn through them. We talk so much, and I know you don't believe in the Milwaukee Brewers, but we talk so much about Milwaukee and how they've been so good for so long. They just continue to churn through guys. It's like, where did this guy come from? Where did that guy come from? That's what the Cardinals are going to have to capitalize on. And in the near future, I don't know what it's going to look like further down the road, but for right now, the strides to get to that point is being up to date with the rest of the league in your minor league system and making sure the pitching lab is right there. You're developing the hitters the right way. All of the finding the talented players through trades or signing guys, that will come, but you got to get your foundation first, and it sounds like they've made strides with their foundation.
And T-Bone, on that front, I do want to get your thoughts on the other thing that Chaim Bloom started with. He opened with, what does it look like when the Cardinals are at their best? And then he continued with, how do the Cardinals win? Take a listen.
How do the Cardinals win? Bill has said this time and again. We're a draft and develop organization. And when you look at our history, I think it's pretty clear that he's right. The Cardinals win first and foremost with core players that we acquire and develop. And fundamentally, that operating model that sustained this organization for decades is still sound. But for it to deliver the results that we need, we have to be elite at acquiring and developing baseball talent in every aspect. That means our process in both the domestic amateur draft and the international amateur system. That means how we assess and value players in other organizations, and our own players too. It means how we develop our players physically, how we teach them the game, how we train them in the gym and on the field, how we take care of them in the training room, how we feed them, how we help them stay sharp mentally. It means how we coach at the big league level, how we get the most out of our major league players. It means how we prepare and game plan every night, how we hire and develop our staff, and it means how we leverage information in every area and how we innovate. So we will act with purpose and with urgency to take a fresh look at every one of those areas and work to set a new standard in each of them. Much of that work won't be visible from the outside, but if we do it well, the results will be. A steady flow of championship caliber players coming through our organization, dominating details and winning ball games. A core that comes together
10
and sustains itself through the inevitable change that every roster goes through in this industry. That's how the Cardinals win. And that's how we'll work towards our goal every day.
And he's spot on with that, right? Like that, what he's saying there of making sure they get into what Alex said, right? Finding their foundation, drafting, developing. And he didn't just limit it to that. Acquire and develop core players. He basically just described what the Cardinal way used to be when it was to acquiring their stars right there. If you don't develop them internally, which they did in Albert, as we've talked about, as they did with Yachty, but if you don't, you have to go out and supplement that roster. And that's what we're talking about, right? You develop those pieces that you can move on from it and acquire and get them back to where the Cardinals want to be. And I think what is going to be the toughest challenge for him, Alex mentioned trying to catch up to baseball, right? He's not only got to catch up, he's got to see if he can catch up and also get ahead of whatever the next wave is of the next evolution of the sport is. And I think that's going to be his toughest task here. How can he do that while trying to settle in on a foundation, get the Cardinals caught up on everything that they have been lacking behind, get them at a competitive level, and then be able to take them to the next step, find that next competitive edge where you had mentioned it. Mo, it used to be, hey, it was with the drafting developing, right? What they did in the draft process, Chaim had said, was where they found their edge. They've got to catch up and then find their next edge while baseball continues to evolve.
And I will say, like, that is what the Cardinals were really good at, was continuing to bring up guys that you'd be like, well, who is this one? Coming from AAA or AA, and then all of a sudden he would be effective and just fit in like a glove for the team. I mean, you go through the John Jays or the Daniel Descalzos, like they did that. The problem was they also had the stars in place that they developed. That's going to be the task that really sets them above and then continues to churn through the rest.
Agreed, and a lot of this goes back to the drafting side of things. I mean, we talked about this off air yesterday. You look at what they have done in the first round in recent years, it's been pretty abysmal for the most part. Their guys just have not developed the way that they anticipated. And that was the opposite of the truth back in the mid-2000s. I mean, you start in 2008. It's Lance Lynn. He ended up becoming a foundational piece for the Cardinals, so much so that 15 years later, he's coming back for round 2 with the Cardinals.
He'll probably be a Cardinals Hall of Famer.
Yep. Shelby Miller after that. And then you've got Colton Wong, Michael Wacha, Steven Piscotty, Marco Gonzalez, Luke Weaver, Jack Flaherty. All of these guys, whether they were here or elsewhere, became, at a minimum, really solid major league contributors. And then after that, it just completely dried up, starting really in 2015, where you had Nick Plummer and Jake Woodford, neither of whom ended up becoming what they were expected to be. And from there, Delvin Perez, I'm just going to read off the names. Delvin Perez, Dylan Carlson, Dakota Hudson, Nolan Gorman, Zach Thompson, Jordan Walker, Michael McGreevy, Cooper Jerpy, Chase Davis. And then it's too early to tell on J.J. Weatherholt or Liam Doyle. But that is a 9-year stretch there.
Their best-looking contributor in that 9-year stretch right now looks like McGreevy.
Or Carlson. Carlson at least had like a season and a half.
I think the reason I said that was because I think McGreevy's going to have at least 5 more years of being a complimentary number 3, 4
Let me ask
starter.
you guys this then. What year was Perez? Was he 15 or 14?
16.
He was 16. Is this tied to Randy Flores?
I mean, it could be. It's hard for me to say because some of it is the organizational philosophy on what they're trying to accomplish. And I will say, like, they took real shots here at trying to acquire a star. Delvin Perez was taking a shot at acquiring a star. Nolan Gorman was a star-level caliber prospect. Jordan Walker, same thing. And I have argued in favor of them taking those shots. So it would be a bit hypocritical for me to now go on the radio and say, like, yeah, because you whiffed on these big swings, you're bad at your job. I don't feel that way. Sometimes you miss, but when you consistently miss the way that they have, because they missed on the position players with the big swings, and then they missed on the small swings with their pitching as well,
right?
That is something that I would like to find out over the next few seasons. Could it be that it was just like a philosophy on the pitching side of things, and that's from higher above than what he had, because he's clearly changed their philosophy on that over the last couple of years? I don't know, but that's something that I would be interested in finding out.
And
by it's an interesting question, though. It's a fair one.
By no means am I taking shots at Randy Flores at all. I'm just like, yes, you want them to take big swings, and we have had those conversations, so I don't want to be hypocritical either. But you also look at the impact versus those first-round picks or guys deeper in the draft that you take big swings on, like what's-his-face in Milwaukee right now, the stud pitcher for them. Why am I blanking on
Mizorowski?
Yeah, Mizorowski. What was he? He was like a late first.
Third
Yeah, he was a later pick. Those seem to be the guys that maybe you take big swings on and hope that it turns into something. The first-round picks, especially in that 10-year span that the Cardinals were drafting them, I don't know if you can – I don't know if you can risk taking the swings on the first-round picks when you need to make sure you're supplementing your minor league system. And, again, this might not even be Flores. This might be higher up the food chain, and that's where it's come from. But, I mean, it's just – I always – again, they're different leagues. I understand that. But you go to what the Blues have done, and they find those guys that they evaluate, and they turn out to be something that everyone else is like, how did we miss this? That's the one thing in 9 years I feel like the Cardinals have not had success in.
Another texter brings this up, and I think it's a totally fair point as well. Yasiel the Boy Puig says they went with higher ceiling guys, but they didn't have the infrastructure in place to develop that talent. That's another question where it's the chicken or the egg situation, right? Was it the player was never going to develop, or was your development system so flawed, so fractured, that they couldn't be developed here? Like, if Nolan Gorman developed in Milwaukee, if Jordan Walker developed in Milwaukee, would they have become different versions of the players that they are today? We'll never know the answer to that question, but I think that's also part of what went wrong for the Cardinals. All right, coming up next, are the Cardinals simply going to be the next version of the Tampa Bay Rays? It's something that he was asked about earlier today, Chaim Bloom was. He gave a thoughtful response. I want to get to that. We'll also hear from you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We've got some mic drop features coming in as well on the 101 ESPN app. We'll react to all of that coming up here on BK and Ferrari.
You're up.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. So we're talking about Chaim Bloom's press conference from today, his first as the Cardinals president of baseball operations. If you guys had any thoughts, you had any questions, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about, T-Bone and Alex, over the last really couple of years, what is the Cardinals model? We know what it was. It was very easy to see, right? They develop their talent and then they supplement from external talent, normally with stars. They bring in Scott Rowland. They bring in Jim Edmonds, Mark McGwire, all of these different guys over the years, Matt Holliday, and they have success in doing so. They supplement what they already have internally. And over the last couple of years, it seems as though that's either become more difficult to do or it's become stale. And so the question is, how do you pivot? What should the Cardinals model look like in 2025? How do you modernize that idea? And the Rays are the obvious example because of Chaim Bloom's history. So he was asked earlier today about whether or not the Cardinals will model themselves after what the Tampa Bay Rays have done. Here was his response.
With respect to the Rays, I think one of the things that has made the Rays so successful over the years is that they do it their way. They do it in the way that makes sense for them. You can't copy-paste that, or you shouldn't try. The whole reason it works is because, and I was part of this for a while, and they've continued to do it, you figure out what you need to do to be the best organization in your circumstances. Every organization is different. Obviously here, this organization's been built on and won with these kind of tentpole players that have been here for a long time. I obviously you can't do that with everybody necessarily, and you shouldn't do that with everybody. And this organization at many points has actually benefited from staying disciplined with that.
10.
But it's also benefited from keeping players here. So when it's the right type of player in person, we're certainly still going to look for opportunities to do that, and we can win that way.
That is something I'm really curious about long-term, Alex, is what they decide to do in that regard. Okay, you developed a star internally. If and when that happens, will you keep him? Are you going to do the Bobby Witt Jr. contract, right? The $300 million deal that they have flat out just never been open to doing. That's the cost of doing business now with these young stars. Is that going to be the model? Or are you planning to go in a different direction where you flip those guys and you're just constantly churning through talent? I don't know that that's something that fans will enjoy here in St. Louis. That doesn't mean that it's something that will fail here in St. Louis, though, and that's something that words can't answer. We just have to wait for the actions.
Yeah, and I mean, in all honesty, I'm sure fans have the reaction of, well, no, they're not going to do that because look at what's happened. But in fairness, they haven't had that guy since Pujols, so it's hard to go off of. And yes, they haven't acquired the star via free agency, but they were just in a different timeline. I mean, look, my gut tells me that if the Cardinals find that player, that's the player that they know you have to be willing to make adjustments versus what you've been in the past. Because if you go through this, and I know the Dewiits kind of wanted to deny the rebuild, they're just kind of building things back up, which is essentially the same thing. But to avoid being in a rebuild longer. When you've got the guy, you've got to keep the guy. And, I mean, a perfect example of what the Pittsburgh Pirates have done, right? Every single time they have the guy, he's typically moved on from. So I agree with the statement from Chaim Bloom. There's really no blueprint to sit here and say, well, we're going to be like the Brewers or be like the Tampa Bay Rays. Because, frankly, I don't think they know what they want to be like. He probably has a blueprint of where he wants to go with this one. But in all honesty, that's going to be how you sustain success. Find the guy and keep the guy. But for right now, the Cardinals haven't had that guy, nor have they been anywhere close to that. So it's hard to look at them and say, well, that's not going to be your new mindset.
Yeah, I found that answer, I think it's the perfect answer to sell to the fan base. Hey, we don't want to be like the Rays. But as BK said, and as you're saying, okay, that's great. And this is what we talked about as kind of the, if you want to call it the warning label for the press conference today. Okay, that's a good answer, but it all is about actions, right? We've heard good answers in the past from the Cardinals. Now, last year, no, but in years prior, yes. And then they don't do what they're saying, right? So that's where it's going to come down to. And I think they have an idea of what their next model is going to be. Because you can watch by what they've done by their hires from other organizations, right?
Sure.
They've pulled from the Seattle Mariners, who have a great pitching pipeline, and there was a pitching guy that they pulled from there. They pulled Rob Cerfolio, who was with the Guardians, who are a very good draft-and-develop organization like the Cardinals used to be with their younger players.
Farm director as well.
Yeah, exactly. Farm director as well. So, like, you can kind of see what they're trying to be, but I think he's spot on about, hey, we can't just do what the Tampa Bay Rays do. They are a little bit in a better situation where they are more in the middle of the pack to where they probably can keep a star like the Guardians have done with Jose Ramirez, like your Royals have done with Bobby Wood Jr., but they also know that, hey, we can't be trying to play with those big boys out on the coast. We don't have the financial might to do it, and that's where their drafting developing comes so key for what their success is going to be moving forward.
I mean, look at what the Dodgers have done, right? Andrew Friedman was the original guy in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And he leaves Tampa Bay for L.A. Nobody is going to mistakenly say that they're similar in the way that they go about their business.
The Dodgers do the same thing.
Yeah, they have taken some of that model, some of the things that they look for, some of the qualities that they look for in players in Tampa Bay. They have taken those same ideas and translated them to LA's financial might. They now have the ability to go, hey, when you get somebody like a Blake Snell who was in the Rays organization and he becomes a free agent, the Rays let him walk. The Dodgers acquire him, right? That's the kind of thing they're able to do. A Mookie Betts, if he were going through the Rays organization, they would allow him to walk. They would trade him. They would do what the Red Sox ultimately did. The Dodgers are on the receiving end of that side of things. So it is an important thing to balance, and there are different resources available in St. Louis or Boston or LA than there are in Tampa Bay, so you would expect it to look quite a bit different. We'll find out just how different it ultimately can be. Last thing that I wanted to get to here, because we've mentioned a number of times Bill Dewiit Jr., some of his responses from today. One of them that I thought was interesting, if nothing else, was his response when asked about payroll. Here we go again.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think Chaim and I have even talked about payroll. You know, he's here to do the job, and we don't know what our payroll is going to be. I can't tell you right now, but you know, we're going to provide the resources for Chaim to build what he's talking about building. So, you know, we can take it from there.
Here to do the job without knowing what his payroll is going to be going into next year.
See, that last part is what really ticked me off. Where he's like, well, we're here to provide the resources to build whatever he wants to build. Are you? Because what you were trying to build in that whole, like, we're going to win with Arenado and Goldschmidt never supplied the resources, or at least the Cardinals didn't acquire the resources to do it. So don't say one thing and not back it up on the other, which, again, we're not going to know that right now. I mean, anybody who thinks they're going to go out there and sign a big-time free agent is just insane right now. But in a few years, when they get this thing righted and you start to see the players develop, I'm going to remember that quote to where it's, we're here to provide the resources that Chaim needs to win. Because Tom Stillman has said the same thing, and they've done it.
They've got to know that this has become the meme of the Cardinals, right? It's the payroll thing. And like it didn't.
And game day experience.
Yeah. that one I do feel for Bill DeWitt III, because, like, what is he supposed to say? His very first thing he said is the most important factor in our game day environment is winning. But I don't have control over that. That is Chaim's job. And so I will tell you about the things that I can control, which is the actual experience at the ballpark and the security and all of these different things. So now I'll give you a 3-minute, well-thought-out answer on what I can do. I'm not caping for the guy. Like, listen, if you're angry at the Cardinals, you have more than ample reason to be upset with them, but like that answer, I felt for him.
I did too, because you could kind of see his eyes going back and forth. Where it's like, man, where am I supposed to go with this? You can't go anywhere. But I guess if I'm him and just lean forward, I'll defer to my dad.
And when that happens, this is the answer. And I just like, man, all you have to say is, listen, we're not sure where our payroll is going to be because there are a number of different avenues that this offseason could take us. Our plan is to put ourselves in the best position to compete for championships in the future. And that will not be driven by our 2026 payroll. It will be driven by the decisions that Chaim Bloom makes. And if he sees an opportunity to make us better for next year or beyond, our job as the owners are to allow him to have those resources to do so. And, like, that's it. You didn't actually answer the question. You completely avoided it. But you didn't do this where you say, we haven't talked about payroll.
Haven't even worked on our Excel sheet yet.
Does anybody believe that?
No. No, because it's every year at this time where they give you an idea of what payroll's going to be. Remember Mo last year said, hey, payroll's going down. 2 or 3 years ago, it was payroll's going up, and it turned out it was a loophole of, hey, it was about the deferral money.
But was it? I can't remember if it was last year or a couple of years ago, maybe even 3 years ago at this point in time. They all start to kind of meld together. But one of them, Mo stopped Bill Dewitt Jr.
That was the year. That was the year that they said that the payroll was going.
Year.
That was last year. Yeah.
Because Mo was like, no. Payroll's going down. I'll just go ahead and be open and honest. I'm done with the answers here. Like he just flat out went out in front of front of his bosses.
DeWitt was like, I was going to tell him that we haven't discussed it yet.
So I thought that was unnecessary, and it is what it is. It's not the end of the world, but it was one of those moments where I was like, oh man. So much of this is going better, and we still have moments where we're reminded of.
Good thing Chaim doesn't have he's got a great poker face, because like if I'm in Chaim's shoes and Bill says that, and I know that we've already discussed payroll, my eyes would say everything up there. But Chaim's got a poker face, man. That's a good thing to have.
All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers coming.
on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. He is going through your mic drops on the 101 ESPN app. What was your reaction to the Cardinals press conference today with Chaim Bloom officially being introduced as the Cardinals president of baseball operations? We'll get into those coming up here in just about 10 minutes. But right now, some of your questions, 314-399-9646 is the place to get them in. From Pete, do you guys still believe that the Cardinals are going to tear this team down, despite them saying today that they were not going to at the end of the press conference? I'm not sure that they specifically made reference to the fact that they're not going to tear it apart.
I think Chaim said something about how we're not just going to ship everybody out, which, I mean, yeah, they're not going to ship everybody out.
I never thought they were going to truly tank. There's no reason for them to. Like, even a tanking team would keep Mason Wynn around, right?
Ferreira.
Yeah, they're 22, 23 years old. They're still young, cheap, cost-controlled. This is not the time when you trade those guys. Those kinds of teams would trade Lars Nootbaar and Brendan Donovan and players that are getting toward the end of their arbitration years or they're getting closer to the age of 30. So nothing really for me changed today in what I heard about Newt, Donovan, etc. Did it for you guys?
No, not for me. I thought the one thing that he said, which I don't remember the exact quote, but he talked about how, we're going to go through and evaluate all of these guys. And he's like, I'm not going to just draw a straight line that says, well, we're keeping these guys and we're not keeping these guys. It sure sounded like, reading between the lines, of, yeah, if somebody comes to us with a trade that we can't pass up, then nobody's off the table. But there are guys that we feel like can still have success here in St. Louis. So I didn't look at this as like a fire sale anymore, to where it's like everybody, if they're half worth around the league, they're going to ship them out. Like, part of me wonders if they don't move like a Brendan Donovan, if they don't get the right offer.
Yeah, nothing really changed for me, because I don't think they can tear this thing down to the studs. This feels more as a retool than it does a rebuild, because a rebuild, I think of what you're talking about, BK, those teams that are tanking, that are like the Rockies, chasing like after bad records, 100-plus losses. I don't think that they're there. I think they're looking to retool this thing on the fly. And now that doesn't mean they're going to be fixed in 2 years. I do think this is a longer process than that. But I think they're mostly just trying to alleviate some of that roster logjam. That's what they're doing. And then to Alex's point, like, if someone blows them away for an offer for Alec Burleson, yeah, okay, they might be willing to pivot towards that guy.
Exactly.
Everybody's on the table because they don't have a core. They've got good players that could be supplement pieces to a core.
From the 618, what did you take away from the opening statement from Chaim Bloom when he mentioned they have to make quote-unquote tough decisions when it comes to player personnel? I think that's where I get into what T-Bone was just talking about. I think they understand they've got a lot of pretty good players, and they also don't know exactly how to build around them. What is this team going to look like in 2 or 3 years when you are trying to not just win and compete, but contend truly for a World Series championship? I appreciated the fact that he just flat out said, we want to win championships here in St. Louis, which at times in the past has been something that kind of skirt around. So, yeah, I think that's what they were referencing, is they're going to probably have to trade some guys that some Cardinals fans don't want to see him go. Whether that be Brendan Donovan or Alec Burleson or Lars Nootbaar or Nolan Gorman, Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, maybe all of these guys, that's difficult decisions. I know it might not be for some, but those are good baseball players. And you shouldn't be in the business of trading away good baseball players when you are the president of baseball operations in St. Louis. But that's where they find themselves, is they have to.
Yeah, and you have to do this, and those tough decisions are going to have to be made because you've missed the playoffs now for 3 straight years. And unless you make these tough decisions, you're going to continue to be in this spot. Like, he emphasized identifying and evaluating talent from other teams. That's what you're going to have to accomplish. I don't know who those tough decisions are, but there's multiple guys on this roster that people will be upset if they get moved this offseason. But the return is what you're living on hope with when Chaim Bloom is making that decision.
By the way, it was announced just a little bit ago that Ollie Marmol will indeed return as the Cardinals manager in 2026. He told that to multiple members of the media, including Cardinals insider Katie Wu, who wrote about this over at The Athletic. So it wasn't necessarily something that we were concerned about. Ollie was there today at the press conference, so I'm not surprised to see this, but just in case anybody wasn't sure, Ollie Marmol, in fact, will indeed return in 2026.
Yeah, and I think the right call. I mean, I don't think there's any need to move on from him, especially when you go into a retool that we're talking about. He may end up becoming the fall guy at some point for Chaim Bloom, but I mean, hey, credit to him. We talked about it at the time, right? This team had no business being in the playoff race this late into September.
Yeah, I mean, even if it is a lame duck return to where you don't have a contract after this one, Ollie's a professional. He understands where this team's at and what they're trying to accomplish, and I think it's the right move rather than just going out there and getting somebody else who might be more likely to lose the clubhouse if the season's bad next year.
All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, we want to hear from you. The Mic Drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. We have given you a lot of our reactions to what Chaim Bloom, Bill Dewiit Jr., and Bill Dewiit III had to say earlier today out at Busch Stadium. What was your reaction to their press conference today? We'll hear from you via the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app coming up next year on 101.
and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
You're up. All right, we want to hear from you. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature is where you can go. And we want to hear your reaction to today's press conference by Chaim Bloom, Bill Dewiit Jr., Bill Dewiit III. All three of us were able to be over at Busch Stadium for that today. We're broadcasting live right now out at Enterprise Center where the Blues will have a preseason game tonight. Alex will be a part of those festivities this evening right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. But right now, again, time to go out to the mic drop feature. Let's start out by hearing from Evan.
Just wanted to place my thoughts on what I think about the Chaim press conference. I have two huge takeaways, and the first one is that sounded identical to Mo, 100%. And even the way the wallet was chiming in bits and pieces was the exact way it was done on every previous Mo press conference, even the year we didn't have one. And then my second thing is there was nothing tangible or concrete that was stated. Some of the questions had little tidbits, but unfortunately that was just a giant waste of time, and it was a publicity stunt. Very disappointed, even though there's not much that would have given me hope.
So the publicity stunt, I mean, yes, it's the first time we've heard from Chaim in 2 years, and there's nothing he can say because the Cardinals are going to be bad. Like, that one is just, I expected it going in. Did you guys get the same sense that sounded like John Mozeliak? Because I did not. I felt like there was, again, I felt like there was a sense of confidence from Chaim, not, and for a lack of a better word, condescending, to where it always felt like with Mo, especially those last 5 years. Like, there was a sense of pride and confidence from Chaim Bloom of like, look, I like this challenge. I respect the Cardinals, and I want to build it back up. But again, part of it's like, what else is he supposed to say? I think what felt like it sounded a lot like Mo was because the Dewitt said the same thing they say every single year in the press conference. But I didn't get the same sense with Chaim.
I do think it's if you put the words, if you just had transcribed the press conference from today.
Oh, this could be a fun game.
I think it could have been something that you would hear from Mo. The difference is how it is being presented, the tone in which it is being delivered, and as somebody that has some of that myself, I can cope. I understand where Mo, I can empathize where Mo's coming from in that regard. But I think, yes, I think it was the packaging. I think it was delivered differently today than it has been in the past. But, yeah, the actual words themselves, I don't think they were all that different from what we had heard from Mo. Ultimately, he's going to be judged by the job that he does. The words, like, they matter because the packaging is important, and the messaging is something that we've criticized the Cardinals for a lot in the past. And so if they're getting a little bit better at it, if Chaim is better at that than Mo was, that matters. It's not nothing. But ultimately, again, you're judged by whether or not you're good at the job, by whether or not you're able to produce a winning ball club. And like to go back to what Evan had to say there in the mic drop, did it feel similar to previous seasons? Kind of, but this is why I said last week in our Redbird Report, T-Bone, it didn't really matter to me all that much what they said today. I don't think there was a lot that they could give you that was going to change your impression one way or the other on how you feel about the Cardinals. All of that is going to be determined by the offseason. A lot of that is going to come down to the moves that they make, the tangible things that they change about the team and the organization, and he can't answer for that today. Those words will either feel hollow or they're things that you just flat out can't say publicly in his role. So this was always going to be a relatively losing proposition for Chaim Bloom. There's not a whole lot that you can win on day one, but that's my personal view on it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Look, did it sound better presented from Chaim Bloom? Yes. Do I think a lot of it was what you would have heard from John Mozeliak had he been sitting up there? Absolutely. I mean, that's what these press conferences are. They are nothing but kind of going through the motions, right? I say this all the time about whether it's you're talking with Chaim Bloom in ownership, you're talking with players in post games. They're all kind of laid out easy answers that they're given, right? They go through media training, and they're able to just kind of lay out the answer that gives you nothing, and it's more noteworthy when they do give you something. I'm not shocked by the fact that we said this, you're right, on the Redbird Report. You're not going to learn a lot from what Chaim Bloom's plans are going to be. It's going to be all about his actions. He can't say anything that churns this. This is what every press conference that's been held over the last 2 days for all these ball clubs that aren't in October. They've all been the same thing, unless they announced their manager was fired. That was news for 3 of them, but yeah, it's all the same answers for all these 30 clubs across baseball.
All right, let's hear from David.
My initial reaction to what you guys are saying is very surprising to me. I was absolutely stoked listening to Bloom. The guy has a direction. He has a plan. He has the knowledge. He has the background. He speaks well. He communicates. All these things we blame Mo for, he seems to be just the opposite of. And I absolutely love what the Cardinals are trying to do here. And I give Mr. Dewiit a lot of credit. A lot of people won't. I give him a lot of credit because I think that he did the right thing by having Bloom come in and reassess everything behind the scenes, and he kept Mo in place to let him have full focus on that. He's got things now the way he wants it, and he knows where he's going with this. And the most important thing he said was, we are going to build a team for championships. I haven't heard the Cardinals say that in 10 years.
I did love that line. It was a good line. It's an easy line. It's a throwaway line. It's something that Ollie said.
I was going to say, the last person that said it was Ollie, and then it got backtracked.
Yeah. I do love the line. I don't know how much it matters, but it's something that, for me, it plays well.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think Dave is what I thought the first 2 or 3 minutes of Chaim talking, and then I had to push myself back and say, calm down, Ferrario. Like, this is, again, to me, it's just word salad. He can say all of these things. That's how you win a crowd, right? You win a fan base by saying, I'm here to build a championship caliber team. But none of it matters unless you get to that point. Like, I've been optimistic before in press conferences with the Cardinals, and then it's fallen flat. So, I mean, look, it felt different because it was a different voice, but maybe it's just me stuck in the mud about the Cardinals of where they've been over the last few years. But until I know that it's different and actions are different from years past, that's when I can get there. And maybe this is just me being dumb. I don't know if he really painted a direction. Like, it was draft and develop, which is something that I've heard before.
He painted a direction, but it was the same direction Mo laid out last year, right?
And 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was, hey, what do we need to do? Or I guess more of ownership probably said this last year. We need to get back to what we were doing, which was drafting and developing our players.
Which is not true.
Well, to an extent, it's true if they develop the complementary piece and then they trade him, right? That's the part that we can't judge Chaim on because he couldn't give an answer on that today because he's not going to come out and say, hey, we're moving on from Wynn. Let me tell you, I've got this great trade idea for Jose Ramirez in Cleveland. But I think what you heard, and that's why, like, and look, I think BK's spot on. It's about just someone different, right? And it didn't really have much tone to it. It sounded, as Alex said, someone that was confident. And Chaim kind of gave that in his one press conference he held last year at the end of the season when they announced him as the next president of baseball operations. Because to me, it's all the same thing they said last year, but it's just coming from somebody different, which is a good thing to have, right? When we talk about firing hitting coaches, what are we talking about? We're not talking about how he's going to go up there and really change Jordan Walker's swing when we talked about going from Turner to Brant Brown. No, it was, hey, they just need a different voice, right? They need someone else to try and connect with. It's the same thing for president of baseball operations today.
Sorry, BK, real quick. The splashback Deuce just said, then you have to be willing to give him that fast lane chance. And Alex, I'm absolutely giving him a chance. There's no me blasting the Cardinals now and getting pre-mad. That's gone now that Chaim has taken over. Now it's wait and see. Now, I can still have the evidence of years past because it's still the same ownership. But I'm not going to sit here and blast Chaim Bloom for a trade or something, or if a guy doesn't develop. This is a patience effort. So I'm absolutely giving this guy a chance.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of like politics in that before you get into any kind of a debate, if you had polled the audience that was watching that debate, how do you feel right now about each of these individual candidates? And then you polled the same audience afterwards. Even though there was obviously like stuff that was said up there, most of the individuals that were watching the debate have the same feelings after as they did before. Now, there are some where that changes, one notably in the last 18 months or so, but we don't have to get into that. But for the most part, nothing really changes after hearing your individual candidate up there for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be. I think that's what happened today. I think if you had asked David before the introduction today, he probably was excited about Chaim Bloom as the next president of baseball operations. And after he heard him speak, he feels even more excited about what Chaim Bloom can do. Evan probably felt the opposite way. Evan was probably kind of like Alex, somebody that was very much predisposed to being negative about the Cardinals because of the information that's been provided over the last 3 to 5 years. And I think that's ultimately what today was. It reinforced however you felt before. If you thought this was just going to be more of the same, it probably sounded like it was more of the same. If you think this is going to be something new and fresh and exciting and different, well, you got your face and your name and the voice that can support that idea. I think a lot of this was whatever your predisposition was. All right, let's hear from Vinny.
I agree with Alex. It was a bunch of word salad, but for an introductory press conference, I wouldn't expect the details of every thought they had over the season to be laid out for us, nor should it be from a strategic standpoint. That being said, even though they didn't say much, I'm really excited for the new era. I'm solidly in the apathetic group. I haven't been to Busch Stadium in 2 years. I think that front office grew complacent, and it was very much like walking through a museum. Well, hey, what about this bad decision? Well, we were great 10 years ago, and I'm tired of it. Will the Chaim Bloom era be better than the Mozeliak era on the whole? Honestly, probably not. Modernized. We needed an injection of energy, and I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm excited to actually be able to root for my baseball team next year.
One thing that I find interesting, and he mentioned about how he's excited for Chaim Bloom, how long does Chaim have? You know, that is the one thing that I am going to be keeping an eye on of how long does Chaim have while he's getting, from some, not all, but from like we were just talking about, for the people that are excited, hey, this feels new, this feels different, I'm excited, maybe there's not that complacency as Vinny just brought up. How long does Chaim have to do that? You know, that is one of the things that will be interesting because everything that's been kind of quote-unquote leaking to the media seems to signal, hey, they think they can maybe not a contender, but be competitive in about 2 to 3 years. You know, is he going to be given that long of a grace period? I am so fascinated to see how long Chaim Bloom gets from the fan base.
Well, and I second what Vinny said. Like, I haven't been excited about the Cardinals in 4 years, it feels like, because it just feels like it's the same thing every year. Now it does have like this new breath of excitement because, yes, it might be bad for a couple of years, but they've already invested in this minor league system and this pipeline that they're talking about. You've got some top picks that are making their way through the system. There is a level of excitement, and I think it's the unknown that's exciting because I don't know what Chaim Bloom is going to do. It could look bad in 3 years, and we could be complaining the exact same way. But he also could open up a window of potential competitiveness for the next 10 years. That's where the excitement comes into play.
All right, and that's what I wanted to get into coming up on the other side. What is the offseason going to look like for the Cardinals? Now that we've heard Chaim Bloom speak for the first time publicly as the president of baseball operations, what are you guys expecting? Did anything change for you today after hearing Chaim Bloom speak? We'll talk about that coming up here on BK.
Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
You're up.
All right, so some people have excitement coming off of today's press conference by Chaim Bloom, Cardinals president of baseball operations. His first time speaking to the media, speaking to you, the fans, as the president of baseball operations. What is the offseason going to look like for the Cardinals, though, and will that sustain some of this optimism that currently exists? Here's what Chaim Bloom had to say about the offseason that lies ahead.
And what does that mean for our roster this offseason and into 2026? Well, you heard me say it. We aren't where we want to be, competing for the division and for the World Series. We have talent here. We have more talent coming. And we have some of the makings of that core, but we need more. And so our top priority will be to build our talent base for the long term. That may mean hard decisions and short-term sacrifices, but to get where we want to go, we can't take shortcuts, and we won't. We will always want to win. And we will hunt moves and decisions that allow us to do that right now, too, as long as they also serve our ultimate goal.
10.
We have to choose between short-term gratification and our bigger goal of contending consistently. We will choose the long term. We will make moves with that ultimate goal in mind because, simply put, that's where this organization needs to be.
I thought that was the most interesting answer, the most interesting statement that he made all day, personally.
I do too.
And when he said it, my immediate thought was, I wonder how we see that this offseason play out. Because it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to hunt decisions that allow for us to do that right now, too. Talking about winning in the current day. How does that play out? What are some of those decisions? What could they look like? I find all of that to be really interesting.
That's the one for me because, again, not to intertwine two leagues, but that's the Holloway-Broberg move.
Sure.
I mean, when they acquired those guys, it wasn't, well, they're going to make us great this year. It's going to be, this is a slow play. They're going to be good for us in a couple of years. You acquire younger guys that have a taste of the major leagues, but are more so like, and again, baseball's different because most guys that get a taste of it are probably up there still. But that's how you accomplish it. It's kind of like you fall into some luck there to where you get a guy, and it's like, he's going to be good for us in 3 years. And then, boom, he's great for us right now. The one that we referenced earlier this season, Stowers, when he was traded from, Baltimore to Miami. Yeah. I don't know if Miami knew that guy was going to be great right away. It was, this is the long play for us. That was my thought when he said that. It's like, they're going to be looking for their Holloway or Broberg move. Somebody to make a mistake, and they pounce.
And when he made that comment, it makes me think they're looking on it on the pitching side. And he made no reference to pitching there, but we've kind of talked about it. How are they going to be able to build this rotation out if there is no appetite to spend in free agency? And they kind of threw a word salad at that when asked about free agency. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're going to try and supplement some of the major league pitching staff by making some of these short-term moves that also have long-term ramifications, looking for an arm that's got some control, and then also with some of these moves as well, reinforcing that minor league level. The buzzword in all that answer there, and he said it like 3 times, was long-term is what they're shooting for. So anything that they look to acquire this year is going to be something that they are looking at as, hey, this is going to be a piece that can help us in whatever it is, 3 to 5 years when we're back to our contending window.
I wonder if there's something else, though, to that. And what I mean is, like, you think back to, I've referenced this trade a few times because I think it's been so impactful for both teams. One went on to win the World Series. The other has somebody that's a stalwart in their rotation. The Royals signed Aroldis Chapman in an offseason and then traded him in, I think it was early July, to the Texas Rangers. And in return, they got Cole Ragans, who's now, their de facto number 1 starter. And Aroldis Chapman helped the Rangers go on to win the World Series. It was a huge, huge deal for them as well. But the Royals got a huge piece of their present and for the future by signing a dude in the offseason for like $5 million. I wonder if you could also see moves like that this offseason, where right now my thought was always, well, they're just not going to do much of anything in terms of adding from free agency. Maybe you could go see them, whether it's like Ryan Helsley's the easy name to mention here because he has the history, but somebody like Ryan Helsley that has immense upside, and if you sign them to a $3 to $5 million deal and they pitch well for you, they become a huge asset immediately at the trade deadline. Or you go out and get like a Dustin May, who we've brought up a number of times. Big time upside. No idea if he'll ever be able to realize it again. But if he does, he's the exact kind of starting pitcher that other teams would covet at the trade deadline. that's another thing that it gives you immediate gratification of this guy could be good for you. But also there is that long-term play as a part of it where you spend a few $1,000,000 to effectively, quote-unquote, buy a prospect once you get to the trade deadline. I wonder if that's kind of what he's referencing there as well.
And that is the hope of this not being a long-term thing, is that Chaim is excellent at evaluating other teams' talent. And that's something that just John Mozeliak and company were not great at. If Chaim is excellent at this, and you can say, this is the guy we'll target. We think we can fix him. All of the elements we put into our minor league system and offseason program for these guys, we feel like we can fix this guy. Because that's what some of these teams do. They go out there and they see somebody, Milwaukee with Quinn Priester. I always reference him. It's like, oh, well, this guy's got something. We can fix it. That's what the Cardinals have been good at in the past and need to be good at now. And that's where this becomes what might be a 5-year ordeal, could be a 3-year ordeal if you find the right guy. But it all comes down to the talent of Chaim and his staff.
Yeah, they have so many different paths that they can take. And we talked about, Chaim made the comment of like, hey, I don't want to rule anybody as like, this guy's not movable. This guy is definitely on the out. That's kind of flexibility that they're going to be looking for this offseason, whether that's the route that BK's bringing up, right? You go out and you sign, whether it's a Dustin May for the rotation or another Phil Maton, right, that you can bring into your bullpen that you hope to sell high on. Or you're looking at it saying, hey, can we pull off, I've brought this up multiple times, can we find a way to pull off what the Reds did last year and acquire a young cost control starter where they traded away Jonathan India with some control in exchange, basically a 1-for-1 swap to go out and get a pretty good arm in Brady Singer. They've got multiple different avenues. They are going to be making a lot of moves. They are going to be one of the more active teams. I won't call it aggressive, but active teams in this year's offseason. And they'll be doing all that with none of it being in play of like, okay, what does this do for this year, right? I think he kind of said it. Look, we're not going to roll out 2026 as a year that we kind of hope to be winning ball games. If we win ball games, great. But the main focus will be how does it help us in the long term? And that's what I'm going to find so fascinating, how they want to try and do this offseason, because they have multiple avenues to explore.
All right, he's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. We've got Bradford Bruns back in the studio with us today. We're broadcasting live at Enterprise Center, where the Blues were on the ice earlier today for morning skate. We've talked about the Cardinals the entirety of the day thus far. I do want to get to 2 news stories coming up on the other side. One with the St. Louis Blues, some interesting comments from Jim Montgomery. We'll let you hear what he had to say about a specific young player that might be opening some eyes for the Blues. We'll get into that coming up on the other side. And big news of the NFL, a starting quarterback that might miss multiple weeks over the next few. We'll tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN.
All right, Alex, I'm trying to grab Mike.
Your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins.
Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products are compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Want a boost in and out of the bedroom? Hims has introducing a new 2-in-1 approach to level up your game. Tadalafil for better bedroom performance and zinc for testosterone support. Turn things all the way up.
Yes. Bullet points are saved in there for you, and then as soon as we're done with our show, I will shoot the video, and then I will send it, or I'll post it on Twitter, and then I'll let you take it. Well, no, I guess you can't see it. I'll do it on Facebook, and then you can take it from there for everything else.
Yeah, or just send it to me, or put it in the draft.
Okay, I'll try that. I remember we had issues with that last year, so I'll see if I can get that to work.
Okay,
cool. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Looks good, feels good, and it's
Tanner, next break you have DraftKings, sir.
So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Hey, it's Kerry Davis, and guess what? FanDuel is coming back. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, is coming to Missouri on December 1st. You'll finally be able to bet on all your favorite teams in all of your favorite sports. With FanDuel, there are tons of ways to get in on the action. You can bet on everything from the money line to overs, unders, to which team will win it all. Plus, with live betting, you
word, though.
You're up.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live at Enterprise Center where the Blues were on the ice earlier today. And Alex, there were some interesting comments from Jim Montgomery about one of his young forwards. We talked a lot about Justin Carbonneau. We spent a lot of the offseason talking about Dalibor Dvorsky and how he fits into the Blues' immediate plans as well. We maybe had exactly 0 segments on Otto Stenberg.
Yeah.
And what his role could be for the 2025 Blues. Go ahead and take a listen what his impression has been for Jim Montgomery.
Just that he makes people better. He understands if someone doesn't have leverage, if they don't have, and what I mean by that is deep enough knee and ankle bend to have leverage on the faceoff, so you have real good balance and power. And then just the way other centers lined up and the game within the game. If you played a lot of center, it's a chess match. A guy lines his stick up, his feet kind of switch areas if you're beating them, and you got to adjust to that to be able to continue winning draws.
10.
And if you're getting beat by someone, how to tie someone up so your wingers can come in and help. All those nuances of that, knowing the art of taking face-offs, Steve Ott's really good at.
Okay, so I think that was a different answer. That was his answer on whether or not he's good at the draws. But he talked a lot about how he.
Well, the beginning of it was where he said he makes people better around him.
Okay.
That was the quote that I saw Lou tweet out. I think it was just meshed together
Gotcha.
in one answer.
What's been your impression? You've seen a little bit of him. We'll see him tonight in the preseason game as well. And do you think he has a real shot to be able to make this roster?
I don't. I mean, if Carbonneau didn't have a shot to make this roster, I don't think Stenberg has a shot to make this roster. I would say Dvorsky probably is a better one than Stenberg, but I do think he's done what most guys want to do in training camp in terms of make themselves known to the coaching staffs. Meaning, like, if you go down to the American Hockey League, a coach in the middle of a rough patch in the season, whether it's a month in or 2 months in, says, hey, remember this guy? We think he can bring more. And, this past Saturday, Jim Montgomery talked a lot about Dvorsky and Carbonneau and Pekarchik in the preseason game, saying they're going to play their roles that they would play at the NHL level, which is a third-line player. Stenberg playing in the second line with a Bukestad and Neighbors tells you that it's like, yeah, you'll probably be a third-line player at the NHL level. The one thing that I've talked with the play-by-play guy from the American Hockey League, and I've seen some games down there, and then I remember from last year in a couple of preseason games, he is a playmaker. Like, he makes guys around him better. He's not going to be somebody who lights the lamp like a Snuggerud or a Carbonneau will, but he's very similar to... And I don't want to say Robert Thomas because Robert Thomas is like an elite level, but like he's very similar to what Steen was towards the back end of his career, to where it's like he's just so responsible everywhere on the ice. He knows where he needs to be at the right time in the right place. He makes the right decisions, but he can also make a highlight reel play that you didn't expect from him. So if Jim Montgomery is talking about him, that means he's made an impression. Him playing in that line with Neighbors and Bukestad tonight tells me that they at least want to see what it looks like at the NHL level. Now, if he goes out there and dominates, because I don't know if anybody saw what the Dallas Stars are bringing to Enterprise Center tonight, it's basically an opening night lineup. Like, it's Rantanen and Duchesne and Sagan and Johnston. Like, it's everybody. That's the test. If Stenberg stands out, and by the way, Dvorsky's playing tonight as well. I think he's playing with Lucic and Texier, if I saw that correctly. If Stenberg stands out tonight, then yeah, maybe there's a slighter chance that he gets the spot on opening night. But I think it's less likely to happen now, but they know what they have in Stenberg, and now it's just growth.
Yeah, I love the fact that they're going to put him on a line. You said it's with Jake Neighbors
yes,
tonight?
Neighbors, and then Bukestad's the center position.
I love that. Those are guys that could legitimately be in that third-line competition.
Yeah.
They could be as a part of that third line along with Stenberg. So I like that they're going to have those three on a line together. I like that they're going up against legit NHL competition. We'll see how he sizes up. Blues back in action this evening in the preseason. You'll be able to hear all of that right here on 101 ESPN. Beginning at 6 o'clock, Alex has your pregame coverage for you here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. On the other side of things, the Baltimore Ravens, it has been announced by the local coverage out there in Baltimore that Lamar Jackson is expected to miss potentially multiple weeks with the hamstring injury that he suffered over the weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs. Some thought, hey, did he just quit? Did he quit in this game on Sunday? Did the Ravens take him out just out of full precaution. It sounds like this is something a little more serious and that he's going to miss at least Sunday's game against Houston and possibly multiple weeks. Man, if that's the case, we could actually see the Ravens miss the playoffs this year because this defense is horrible. They're in a really bad spot. They announced earlier this week, Matabike, their best defensive lineman, is going to miss the entirety of the season. He's been put on IR. They've got the Houston Texans this week. That is not an easy defense to go up against for your backup quarterback, and the Texans don't have a good offense, don't get me wrong, but neither did the Chiefs prior to this week. Everybody's putting up 30-plus. I don't know that the Ravens can keep up if Lamar Jackson's going to be out this week. And then you've got the Rams. If Lamar misses that game, I fully expect that the Ravens will lose that one. Then you got a bye week, and maybe he's able to get back after that. But, man, if you lose the next 2 games, you're 1-5 to start out the season. You basically have to go 9-2 the rest of the way to be able to make it to the playoffs. This could be the year from hell for the Baltimore Ravens.
It could, but 9-2 in the scenario that you just painted, and let's say Lamar's back against the Bears. They play the Bears, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, which will be tough, the Jets, the Bengals twice, the Steelers, the Patriots, the Packers, and then the Steelers.
They could do it. They're capable if the defense can figure it out and Lamar's back. This is a good enough team that I'm not putting it past them. But the odds are heavily stacked against them.
Especially if you have to go 9-2. I mean, there's no wiggle room for error. Now, it might be like if you're an optimist with the Ravens, maybe they're making this at the right time to where it's like he's not 100% and we're going to lose because he's not 100%. Let's get him 100% so that we have him and know we're the better team in these scenarios because we've talked about it. The AFC is just dog poo beyond number 6. So the Ravens could still sneak in, but I mean, realistically, you'd prefer to win one of those games against the Texans and the Rams, and it's got to be the Texans because what the Rams have done, the Ravens defense can't stop that, even if it's at home.
Yeah, this screams, I don't remember what year it was. I think it was the year after the Rams won the Super Bowl, where like everything you could just tell, they started off playing well, and then it's a little different because it was like about this time when the Rams started to deal with injuries. BK said it, it's a year from hell with injuries, right? These are going to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. It sucks. Like, it truly sucks because you have a truly playoff caliber roster and a roster that should be able to contend for meaningful games late into the year and be an AFC championship caliber team. They just haven't been able to stay healthy, and that's the tough part with football, man. I mean, this is going to happen. It happens to have bit all of their key players on the defensive side of the ball. Now it's biting their star quarterback in Lamar Jackson. They just may not be able to survive it this year. The good news for them is they are in the AFC, as you said, and their division is not that strong, right? They can end up probably getting in the playoffs by winning their division and having a home playoff game by winning 9 to 10 games. Like, I don't think it's going to take a lot in that division, so that's the plus for them. But this screams a year in which, this may actually happen. The Ravens may not be a playoff team because they can't stay healthy.
What sucks is Derrick Henry's 31. He'll be 32 this time next year.
That window's closing.
There's no guarantees that Henry's prime extends beyond this season. You know, this might be the last time that we see him at this level.
You're kind of seeing some signs of it now, right? Fumbling the ball. I don't think he looks as explosive this year. Maybe that's just me, but I don't think he looks as explosive as he has been in the past.
We'll see. We'll see. I think Derrick Henry still is
one of those guys that when he decides.
That was where we drew the line. Derrick Henry. Okay.
I mean, the fumbles are a real thing, but I'm not worried about
he's
how he
averaging
looks.
6 yards per carry, so I think Henry is the least of their
maybe
problems.
I'm frustrated because he's on my fantasy.
The guy also looks like he was built in a lab somewhere, so I'm not too worried about how he looks early on in the
carries
season.
over the last 3 weeks, 11, 12, and 8. I think that has more to do with his lack of production than
the fumbles
than anything like efficiency-wise. But yeah, and the fumbling issues have certainly been there as well. But what I'm trying to get to here is if he's not the same guy next year or beyond, they miss their window.
Yeah.
This happens sometimes. Sometimes you just miss your window. You had this great collection of talent, and for whatever reason, it didn't come together when it needed to. The Cardinals had this as an example. And the Ravens, it's entirely possible we're watching that play out right now. On the defensive side of the ball, for whatever reason, injuries now, but earlier in the season that wasn't the case, it never coalesced. And on the offensive side of the ball, when you have Lamar Jackson out for an extended period of time and you got off to a really slow start, just puts you so far behind the 8 ball that it's really hard to overcome. So if you missed it, the news here in the NFL is that Lamar Jackson expected to miss this week against the Houston Texans, and it is possible he misses multiple weeks with the hamstring injury that he suffered over the weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you guys had to guess right now, with this news in the back of your mind, if you had to put together your playoff teams in the AFC as of today, your 7 AFC playoff teams, who would you go with?
So I would go Bills.
Agreed.
Chargers.
Agree.
I think I'm still going to put the Ravens win the AFC North.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And then I think I'll put the Colts in the AFC South. So then the Jaguars, Chiefs, and then I think I'll put the Steelers there.
So
that'd be my 7.
I'll go Bills win the East. I will go Steelers. I think will find a way to win the North. I don't feel great about that answer. Colts win the South. One of Chargers or Chiefs wins the West and makes the playoffs, so that's got me up to 5. I will say, oh boy, I will say Jacksonville sneaks in, and then I guess Baltimore will sneak in, or Denver. I'll go Denver. I think Denver will get in over them, so that would be
over Baltimore.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
I think it's possible. I mean, they played pretty well last night. I mean, Bo,
not with Bo picks.
Bo made one really dumb mistake, but I think that they can get in. They've got a great defense too.
Yeah, I think they've got a good defense. This is a huge opening for them. If Denver can't make it into the playoffs this year with this opportunity, because now you've got Cincinnati that has a backup quarterback. They don't have Joe Burrow. And you've got Baltimore playing with their backup quarterback for multiple weeks and basically playing with half of a defense for multiple weeks as well. If you can't sneak in with those factors on your side, man, it's hard to see how it happens in the next couple of years. This should be the opening for them. The Houston Texans are a team that we did not mention there. They have a potential path now as well, because if they're able to win this weekend, you're back to 2-3. You're right back into the race. Despite the slow start, everything looked horrible. You could get right back into this thing. So they're another team that I wouldn't completely throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet. It's going to be interesting, man. The Ravens are they feel they're back against the wall. And I love seeing championship caliber rosters when they are pushed, when they're on the brink. What is the response? What does it look like? This is a moment where we're going to find out exactly what the Ravens are capable of. I thought Sunday was pretty meaningful for them. Now that you see Lamar potentially out for the next couple of weeks, it becomes that much more important. All right, alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live out at Enterprise Center, where the Blues took morning skate earlier today. We were over at Busch Stadium earlier this morning to hear from Chaim Bloom as well, hoping, fingers crossed, to hear from him at some point in the 1 o'clock hour today. We will be joined, we're expecting, by Jeremy Rutherford coming up 1:15 today.
Hopping on, yep.
Here on BK and Ferrario. But next, let's dive into the junk drawer here on 1.
it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, what do you got for us today?
But before we go now, we have to side tangent because T-Bone, tell them what you just told us during the break.
Yeah, I started listening to a little Christmas music last night before I went to bed.
Psychopath.
It's September 30th. We haven't even made it to
it's
like
90
Halloween
degrees outside.
It feels cold in here, which really adds to the feel like.
It's not even officially hockey season yet.
So
who
can, it's
the
never
playoffs for Major League Baseball have not yet begun.
Who can,
This is a
it is
trash
never a
move,
bad
bro.
time to listen to Christmas music. I saw a commercial. I think it was the Disney's been playing a commercial to like, hey, come down to the Disney parks, around Christmas time, and they've got the Christmas music, the snow flurries come down, and I went, you know what, while I'm getting ready for bed, I'm going to listen to a little Christmas music.
I despise
So I just listened
you.
to 2 songs on Spotify, and then went
You're
to bed, and I felt great. I felt happy. I felt happy last night, and you guys are trying to ruin my happiness.
Technically, I was wrong. The baseball playoffs have officially begun.
Yeah.
It's just a game that nobody's watching with the Tigers and Guardians. By the way, Tigers up 1-0 in the top of the 4th inning.
You're the reason why convenience stores put Christmas stuff out in July.
As
you
they should.
You.
I'm ready for my Christmas coffee already.
Respect Thanksgiving and Halloween before you
There's
get to
nothing
Christmas.
there's not songs involving Halloween or Thanksgiving.
I just trash move,
None.
bro. Anyway,
Outside of Thriller for Halloween.
There are a ton of songs for Halloween.
Ghostbusters.
What are you
The
talking about?
Monster Mash.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but it's for Halloween.
There are songs and there are movies for Halloween.
There's
What are
entire
you
TV
talking
shows
about?
for Halloween.
Who cares
There's a
about
genre of film
Okay,
for
there's
Halloween.
not one for
I
Thanksgiving.
watch a Halloween movie every single night in the month of October. Not listening to Bing Crosby as I fall asleep on September
White
29th.
Christmas, personal
Jeez.
favorite.
Anyway, so
That's your go-to?
Yeah.
That's your go-to, White Christmas?
That one in
Elf would be my go-to. I know it's a
Oh, wait.
He
controversial one now.
hasn't seen the movie. He doesn't know what you're talking about.
Wait. I thought you were
Christmas.
talking. Wait, movie
Me?
or song?
No, him.
Oh.
White Christmas, White Christmas. My go-to song. I
Okay.
don't know what my go-to movie would be.
Mine,
Maybe The
mine's
Grinch?
It's a Wonderful Life.
See, that's
I
what
love
my
that
mom
one.
says too.
I love that one. I tear up at the end of it every single
I
time.
feel like T-Bone's more of a Home Alone guy.
Home Alone
because he's a
solid.
child.
Yeah, it feels kinship.
T-Bone.
My personal favorite are those ones. What do they call it? Is it stop animation where they like move the character and that's how they kind of make the
Claymation.
Claymation.
Rudolph.
Yeah, Rudolph, or
Rudolph.
The Year Without a Santa Claus.
You are such.
Is that the one that whichever one it is?
You
that
are
has the,
100 years old.
Oh,
But
don't-
yet you don't like Bing Crosby's White Christmas movie.
I don't know that I've ever seen.
Or
that.
It's a Wonderful Life. I think that was my
I've seen It's a
grandparents'
Wonderful Life,
favorite
not a
film.
fan. Not a fan, but I do love the like Rudolph, the Year Without Santa Claus. I think that's the one that has the he's Mr. Eat Miser. Oh, classic.
He's like, he's 5.
gets me going
but
every
he's also
time.
85.
Oh.
Like he's that sweet spot of not being in the middle. He's both old and super young. And sometimes you just want to pinch your cheeks, T-Bone, and be like, you're so cute.
The Sun Launcher says, genuine question, BK. What is controversial about Elf? I think it's kind of gone into this weird spot where a lot of people enjoy Elf, and so there's been almost a backlash of like, Elf's actually not a good Christmas movie.
Oh, like what I typically am, the trends that I hate them?
Once people start liking it, it's like the old hipster thing, right? Like, I liked this band before they got big, but now that they're big, I don't like them anymore. They sold out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with a Christmas movie, which originally got, a huge claim, and then eventually, like, it became almost too big.
Yeah.
So
I've been Elf from day one, so I can't sit there and
I
be
think
upset
Elf's fine.
with it.
I won't like seek it out during Christmas time. If it's on TV, I'll watch it, but I'm not gonna like just say, oh, you know what, my Friday night, watching Elf.
Somebody on the text line said, I like that BK thought T-Bone's favorite Christmas movie was from 1954. I mean, it is.
Yeah, it is. He's like Claymation. Claymation was the hip thing around
They
those
just don't
times.
make Christmas movies like they used to, Now they're all the same on Hallmark. We all know what's going to happen.
I hate you for making us talk Christmas during
You're
the
welcome.
junk drawer, but I had to bring this up.
All right, text line, we see it. Yes, we understand. Apparently, Alex's microphone is a little bit low. We'll talk to Doty. We'll make sure that we get it fixed.
Come on, Doty. People want to hear me talk, apparently.
I do apologize. We'll make sure that we get that fixed for all of you. Alongside Tanner Hendricks
People
and
love
Alex
me.
Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, I do want to get back into the Cardinals Cardinals. We're going to hear from more of you. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Chaim Bloom had his introductory press conference earlier today. He said all of the things that, honestly, we kind of thought he was going to say. How to hit your ears, though, that is different for everybody. We want to hear from you via the mic drop feature next year on 101.
You're up.
We want to hear from you. It's a big day in Cardinals Nation as Chaim Bloom was officially introduced today as the Cardinals president of baseball operations. If you missed any of his introductory press conference, you can see it in its entirety. You can hear it right now. 101ESPN.com is where you can go to hear that full audio. We also played a lot of cuts from that earlier today. We gave our reactions to them. If you want to hear those, you can check it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find that. It was always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
But right now we want to hear from you. We gave our reaction. Want to hear a little bit from you guys as well. The mic drop feature is out on the 101 ESPN app, and that is where Nick left his mic drop today.
Chaim seems just more serious. Like, he's had success at other spots. He knows what he's capable of. You know, the whole Mookie Betts trade, I feel like that put the Red Sox in a bad spot, and that's what he's kind of known for in, like, a bad way. And, like, this is totally different. He doesn't have anywhere close to anybody as Mookie's caliber to where he has to worry about making a move and what direction the franchise is going to go. To me, Mozeliak, he got less serious as his tenure went on and here towards the end. Even Chaim said, I'll miss your sense of humor. It's like Mo didn't take it as serious as the fans would like it. He got complacent. He settled. He knew that he was good at trading for players. He didn't do it as much. He's lucky that Sonny and Wilson have been good on bad teams because those have been the best straight-up free agent signings he's ever had.
Does anybody else think the mic drop cut off on there? Felt like he had more to say at the end of it.
That was probably too.
I agree with the last thing. Like, there's a pretty good case to be made with, I would say, Carlos Beltran, Wilson Contreras, and Sonny Gray. Those might be
Johnny Peralta.
Three best. Peralta
at the beginning. The back of it wasn't good.
Say.
But at the time, they went out there and they got what they needed to. They got another bat and a guy that could play shortstop.
Yeah. Those are probably the best.
Beltran and Berkman, too, would probably be the elite of the elite because Berkman, of course, to get you the World Series, but Beltran at the time of losing Pujols, and you brought in a MVP caliber player. And see, that's what I meant earlier when I said the Cardinals, they weren't yes, they were the draft and develop, but they were more like, hey, we'll go out there and get this guy who probably other teams look at and say he's not good anymore, and we'll turn him into something. Like, they did this so much on the pitching side. Like, Kyle Loesch is the one that always come to mind, where Kyle Loesch was not a good pitcher at the time, and then they brought him in, and it was like, oh, my gosh, where did this guy come from?
So, agreed.
Don't get Tony.
No, agreed. They did that. But it was possible because they also had the front-end starters.
Well, of course, yes. But those weren't draft and develop either. It was Chris Carpenter. It was develop.
Totally. But what I'm saying here is, like, they've still done that. Kyle Gibson was basically Kyle Loesch. Like, the difference.
I don't know about that. Was he? I mean, Loesch was awesome a couple of those years.
Sure. My point is, they still have a lot of those back end of the rotation starters. What they're lacking is the front-end guys. They're lacking pitchers that can come in and be really good for them, regardless of how they acquire them. So, yeah, I think sometimes we get overly excited about some of the players that they brought in over the years or some of the players that they developed over the years, where really what they're lacking is the top-end talent, the creme de la creme. And until you get those guys, like the rest of this stuff, the supplementary talent, I still think they're pretty decent at some of that stuff. But they're lacking the top end, and they've been chasing their tail for that over the years. All right, let's go to John, hear from John via the mic drop feature.
I am really excited to see what Mr. Bloom can do. I'm ready for a fresh face. I'm ready for fresh ideas. I am way past due on John Mozeliak and his old ways. And as far as a draft and development team, the Cardinals have drafted and developed players like Gibson, Simmons, Pujols, Molina, Langford, Carlton, Boyer, Forsch, and Hernandez.
10.
They have red jackets that they traded for. Goldschmidt, McGee, Torrey, Cepeda, all won MVPs. Flood, Brock, Maris, White, Grote.
He was reading off his list. You heard that, right? He picked up his notebook when he started to read it.
Yeah, well, I would say this, like, yes, they did do that, but that was back in the 80s, 70s, and 60s. Baseball is a lot different. You know, I made reference to Whitey Herzog in his press conference of how they kind of found an identity, right? They created Whitey Ball. They're not going to be doing that. They got to find what their next identity is, and again, it goes back to what Alex is saying. They do have to find the top layer, or as BK was saying, you got to find those top guys. How you do that, I don't care how you do it, right? I don't care if it's you go out and you sign somebody for an international free agency, you draft and truly develop that guy, you do a top prospect swap and you end up acquiring that guy, you end up acquiring him because you've done what you did in the past where it was, hey, Goldschmidt's not getting a contract in Arizona, okay, go out and acquire that guy. That's what they have to find a way to do. They have to find their path to go find those top-level guys. Once they do that, everything will settle back in because they still have been a good organization when it comes to finding the Brendan Donovans, the Lars Nootbaars, those complementary pieces. They just haven't been able to develop that star.
Yeah, I mean, I just set aside the word draft. Everybody needs to draft well. I look at develop and evaluate because that's where the Cardinals have really struggled. You have lacked the development of these guys that have had such high expectations when you've brought them in, and you have lacked the ability to evaluate other teams' rosters. When you make trades, when you go out there and you bring something in that say, well, this is going to help us, you have not traded for the right piece. That's where the Cardinals have fallen flat. All those guys that you listed, yeah, they drafted and developed those guys. That, as Tebow mentioned, that's the 70s and 80s, man. Like the most recent one you said was Albert Pujols. That's what they did. And that's what led to success all the way up until 2011. And then you had some really good roster moves beyond 2011, and then it started to fall. And that's where the develop and evaluate really started to lack for the Cardinals.
All right, let's hear from Vic.
I give Bloom no time. He needs to win now and the next season this season coming up, 26. If he does not, then I give him no time. There is no time, no patience. He needs to at least make the playoffs in 26, or once again it's shown to me it's the same stuff. So I don't know where you guys are getting this different voice or some type of hope or whatever until, the Double-A team did win a championship.
All right, first of all, Vic, buddy, take your phone out of your pocket.
No, I think he had his hand over it. He did the equivalent of my mom when she tries to videotape and her fingers over the camera.
But secondarily, man, if you're expecting the Cardinals to make the playoffs next year, if that's how you're evaluating them, God bless you. I don't think that you're going to be a very happy individual this year. I don't think that's how they're evaluating themselves. And this is one thing that I would like to ask Chaim Bloom if we're able to get him on either today, next week, whenever it may be. How would you like to be evaluated? Like for fans moving forward, what for next year especially, what does a successful offseason look like that becomes a successful season? How do we evaluate this stuff? Because everybody's doing it on their own, and ultimately, maybe it's the long-term goals of, hey, we want to be evaluated based upon whether or not we win a World Series. Sure, that can be the long-term, but when you go to a therapist and they talk about setting your short and your long-term goals, there should be some short-term goals here as well, and I truly don't know what those are necessarily for the Cardinals. So I don't think, though, that they are making it to the playoffs next year. I think that is holding them to a standard that is not reasonable.
Never say never, man, because Cincinnati Reds are in the playoffs, and you were 4 wins away.
Yeah, as long as you kind of give it the old college try, as BK said, is the lesson from the Reds this year, you might be able to. But I won't judge them. I won't judge them off that. I'm glad you brought that up, because when you talk about looking into the future, and they keep saying, hey, it's about the long term, it's about the long term, it gets very complicated to know how to judge what the president of baseball operations is doing by looking into the minor leagues, right? It's very hard to judge, okay, is this going well? And you can't really take them at their word, because even a lot of organizations, that even when they have not a great minor league system, they always point to and say, well, yeah, we still got a couple guys that we really like. Okay, sure, but do I really judge you off of that? And that's where I think this is going to be interesting to watch, because Cardinals fans, for most of the mic drops we've heard today, have been, hey, I like this new voice. I like we're hearing something new from the Cardinals. I'm excited to see what he does. Okay, but what are you really judging him on, right? Because, if you're thinking out towards 2028, that's great. How am I going to know what was a success in 26 and 27?
Let's hear from Greg. We'll give him the final word on this.
Hey, guys, how about picking up Yachty as some kind of assistant coach? Pick up a decent starter.
I like that idea.
And go for a good second baseman.
Oh, they could use the second or
Weatherford.
12th. Oh, that was it.
Oh, that was it. All of that sounds like a lot of money.
Well, Weatherhold will be cheap.
No,
Starting pitcher. We'll acquire one of those in one of these trades.
The ironic thing with Greg's mic drop, we appreciate you leaving it, Greg. They have 100 second basemen. It's like the one position.
They got a dude who was just an all-star at second base. Like, they don't need a second baseman.
It's the one spot. I feel pretty good. If you could say, hey, they've got one spot locked down for the next 5 years, which one is it? I would probably name second base.
Oh, so you hate Mason Wynn. Way to go, BK.
Well,
I would name 3. I would name second base, first base, and catcher. That's the 3 that they seem to really develop.
No way. There's no way the catcher, because the catchers typically become outfielders.
That being said, though, Yachty being an assistant coach, sure, I'm fine with that. I think that's more up to Yachty than it is to anybody else. I think the coaching staff, it sounds like, based upon Chaim Bloom's comments earlier today, is primarily going to stay the same. We'll see if anybody from their staff gets poached elsewhere, though, because there's a lot of managerial openings this offseason. On the second base thing, again, I don't think that's what they need. On the pitching side of things, I do find that conversation to be one that's interesting to me. I don't know what the direction's going to be there. It could be a free agent. It could be a trade. It could be they're just hoping from within you are able to develop some guys. I think that is the one that I have the least confidence in. But I do find their pitching situation to be really compelling going into the offseason.
Yeah, especially if they're not going – now, again, they didn't really say this, but they don't know what payroll is yet. But especially if you're not going to spend money to go out and just plug holes. I'm not even saying fix, but just plug holes, right? Well, if you're not doing that, then what is your plan? Kyle Leahy's one option for you. Are you really running it back with Andre Palante? Do you go out and target guys while you're making these trades? And again, we've talked about this before on this show and on the Redbird Report. Then you kind of limit what your return is, right, for a Lars Nootbaar or a Brendan Donovan or whoever it is that you're trying to make that trade for. Their rotation is going to be the biggest thing that they have to address in the offseason for the now, because they just have to get people in there that are going to eat innings so they don't rush a Quinn Matthews, a Liam Doyle, and whatever prospects else that they are very high on, like a Bryson Motts, for example.
Yeah, well, and that comes down to the evaluation and the ability to develop, because even if you go get a guy that you see and you're like, this is the guy you acquire, I'm going to give them the grace to say, like, well, maybe they see something that the previous front office regime weren't able to see. So that's where they get their grace for this season.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. We're going to be joined coming up next by Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. We'll get his thoughts on what Jim Montgomery had to say earlier today about Otto Stenberg, how he could fit into the Blues' immediate plans, not just their long-term plans. Also get his thoughts on Lucic and whether or not he still has any kind of an opening to make this roster on opening night. We'll talk about all of that with JR when he joins us next year on 101.
for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford, on 101 ESPN.
JR is brought to you by Evergreen Wealth Strategies, helping everyday people every day. Visit evergreen-ws.com.
Take it.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the Blues insider for The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on the show. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Doing well, boys. Doing well.
All right, let's get into this with something that we heard from Jim Montgomery's availability earlier today. You were there for it, though, so you got to see the ins and outs of it. It sure sounds like Monty has been impressed by what he's seen early on by Otto Stenberg in the preseason. Can you give us a little bit of insight into that? How's he fit into the Blues plans this year?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was definitely a Otto Stenberg-centric press conference today. A few questions asked about the first-round draft pick from a couple years ago. To me, he's been the guy who's probably been the most impressive in terms of you didn't see a lot of his game. You didn't know what to expect from him. You take it for granted that he's a first-round pick, so he's probably going to be a good player, a good prospect in a couple years. But I think he's come in and he's shown well. And specifically, which was discussed today at the press conference, he's played with some top-line players like a Thomas, like a Snuggerud, and fit in well, look the part. And also he's played on a second or, quote, third-line type line and looked just as good. I think that he came up as a center. If you look at his stats, it's going to list him as a center, but he was moved to right wing a year or two ago. That's where he kind of projects as an NHL player, maybe a third-line right winger. But I did ask Jim Montgomery today, can he play center? He said, well, a little bit tough on the draws. They're working on that. They feel like if there's some improvement in that area, he could play center in the future. But right now, I think he's a guy who might not make the team out of camp, but I believe he's a guy who he's definitely put himself in a position where, like Alex said earlier, when they need a guy, they're going to say, remember what Otto Stenberg did in camp.
Does Dvorsky fall in that same camp for you now, JR, or after this previous preseason game where he scored a goal, which was a pretty impressive one, and also was very strong in the first period, has he pushed himself into maybe making the team, or do you think he's in Stenberg territory?
Yeah, Alex, I think that Jim Montgomery talked about him today, too, and he said that he was much better in the last game that he had been in previously. And then he also said that the practices lately, he's looked really good. He feels like he's playing faster than he did early in camp. I still see him as an outside chance. I think that's part of asset management. You have a couple guys in Texier, Joseph, who you could lose on waivers. You can send Dvorsky to the minor leagues, and then you could bring him up when you need him. Look, they're going to have a tough call here coming up. I know we'll get into Lucic here in a second, but you got basically two spots for a group of guys that includes Texier and also Joseph and also Lucic and Dvorsky. And so I think, like I said, with that asset management, it might be a situation where Dvorsky gets sent down and gets called up at some point during the season.
I'll go ahead and ask the easy follow-up then. What is your understanding of the situation with Lucic right now?
Yeah, so tonight it's going to be a line, and I'm going to write about Lucic and his situation at The Athletic for tomorrow after tonight's game. I want to see him play again tonight and just see how he looks. He missed a couple days with that groin injury, got back to practice yesterday, and so he's going to be in the lineup tonight on that fourth line. I see it like this. Has he been overly impressive? Not really, but again, I'll say it again. It's hard to make that evaluation in drills. That's why I want to watch tonight's preseason game. Guys, I look at the situation and say he's 37. They say he's in the best shape of his life, but what kind of shape is that? 37 years old. He's already had the one injury in camp. I think if you look at it from that perspective, you say, yeah, I don't know. But when you listen to Jim Montgomery talk about all of his qualities, the elements that he brings to the team, what he could bring to the team, and you listen to the players. We talked to Jake Neighbors today, who, by the way, he has Lucic living with him in camp. They met each other at World Championships a couple years ago. He welcomed him in. He said he's a great teammate. He spoke in terms of this guy is going to bring us X, Y, Z in the season, and we can't wait to have it. There's a lot of guys on this team who are talking in terms of Lucic being around. I think they feel that way. They know what he can bring. And when you listen to Jim Montgomery, he's saying a lot of good things too. When I asked Jim Montgomery a couple days ago, I said, hey, if you get to a situation where Lucic isn't quite ready yet, maybe he's not ready to play opening night, how can you look at this situation? He says there's some wiggle room. There are some ways that you can keep a guy around, even if you don't sign him to a contract, keep him a part of this thing and sign him at some point. So I'm not saying they're going to sign him. I just think you can't look at it completely from the perspective of how does he look in practice? How does he look in this preseason game? I think they're looking at it from big picture. What can Milan Lucic bring this lineup? And a lot of people are talking in the tents that they believe he can be a part of this.
Sounds like somebody's been listening to some tinfoil Ferrario theories over on BK and Ferrario.
I was waiting for that.
One more on Lucic, JR, because, if you look around the league at certain players, specifically teams in the Central Division, like you see Liam O'Brien with the Utah Mammoth, Marcus Foligno with the Minnesota Wild, and even go over to the Columbus Blue Jackets with that Matthew Olivier. I don't know these guys in terms of a full season, but it sure seems like those types of players, those rough ones that can go out there and get into a scrum, play physical, have that bite to them, it seems like the players rally around those guys. And if you're the Blues, how much of an emphasis do you feel like is necessary to have a guy like that when you take on Utah that has O'Brien or Foligno when he's on the Minnesota Wild?
I think it's a fair question. I think the answer is, and I'll ask another question, is, how many do you need? It looks like Tyler Tucker, although he's back on defense, is going to be able to play that role very well for the Blues. To me, if you can have another one like a Lucic play on that fourth line for you, that's great. But can he play the game? Can he get up and down the ice? You could potentially have a line with a Toropchenko and a Walker, who we saw last year with Foxa. They like to get in on the forecheck. If that fourth line center is Nick Bukestad, if that fourth line center is Oscar Sundqvist, the Blues need a heavy forecheck and identity out of that line, and certainly Lucic can provide that in his heyday. But we didn't see that from him a couple years ago when he was still in the league, and he's been out of the league for a couple years. So I think if the Blues can make the determination, Alex, that he can get up and down the ice and be part of the thing when he's not just that intimidator, then this thing could work. But I think from my perspective, we don't know that we've seen that yet, and hope to see it tonight if this is a guy who wants to make this team.
All right, JR, we'll get you out of here on this. We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. The big news over the weekend, I have not heard your opinion on this just yet, is that the Blues have signed Cam Fowler to a 3-year extension worth just over $6 million per year. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think you look at it, I love Cam Fowler, the player, and I think he's a good fit for this team right now. And I think it makes a lot of sense from the perspective of they've got some guys who just aren't going to be ready in the next couple of years. When you think about Lindstein, when you think about Lucas Fisher and some other players. So Fowler's a guy who can continue to play on that top line with Colton Parayko. You can keep Broberg on that second line. But I think if you look at the term, and he's got one more year left, now it's +3, you're talking 4 years, that takes him to 37. Look, all the response that I got from Blues fans, I thought about it too, is that they've had some situations the past couple of years where veteran defensemen who were signed to contracts that took them into their mid-30s, upper 30s, didn't work out well. There aren't a lot of these types of contracts signed. But I'll tell you this, if you're Doug Armstrong, you're the Blues management, you're talking to the agent, it's not always a situation where you can get a perfect deal with these guys where, if the Blues could get 2 years with Cam Fowler, maybe that's what they'd like to get. But he's got the year left. He wants the third year. Now he's got 4 total. But I see Cam Fowler as a guy who, he can't make any guarantees, but can still play in this league in 2-3 years. And even if he's pushed down the lineup, even if he's a third pair type guy, I think he can bring you a lot more than what we saw from Nick Leddy in the last couple of years of his time here, because Fowler can help with the power play. He can skate, and that's one thing that Jim Montgomery said. He thinks that a guy that can play into 36, 37, if he can skate, he can continue to play in this league. I think Fowler is a better player than some of these veteran defensemen we've seen the past couple of years with the Blues play to that age, and I think he'll be able to contribute something in a couple of years. So I don't mind the contract, preferably shorter term, but I think that it's going to work out okay for the Blues.
JR, appreciate the time as always, man. Look forward to hearing what you have to say about the game tonight. Blues versus the Dallas Stars. Preseason action here at Enterprise Center. That begins with pregame coverage with Alex Ferrario starting at 6 o'clock. Puck drop right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN tonight at 7. JR, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yep, thanks, boys.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario.
I think Lucic is going to make this team.
The opening night roster.
Not the opening night roster.
Okay.
I think he's going to be a part of this team on opening night, though.
In the AHL?
Yeah. I think it's going to be an ATO, amateur tryout contract, gives them a few more games, and then a week, 2 weeks into the season. When did they play Utah? Because they play Minnesota the first game of the season. Whenever they play Utah, I think is when you'll get a chance to see
October 23rd.
October 23rd.
So 2 weeks into the season.
Yeah, he's living with neighbors. Everything that Jim Montgomery has said, Doug Armstrong has said, it sounds like they want that element. And I've already seen some people comment and say, well, then just make him a coach. Don't make him a player.
They need it on the ice.
Yeah,
that's the element that they want is what he can bring on.
They need on the ice.
Can't fight people when he's on the bench.
Do you guys remember the game last season to where they were playing Utah and Tyler Tucker faked like he was going to fight Liam O'Brien off the faceoff and then took the shot and scored the goal? And O'Brien got pissed and he went and fought Tucker, and the Blues were up, I think, 2-0 in that game, and they lost 6-2. And Liam O'Brien sparked that energy for Utah. The Blues need an element to not allow Liam O'Brien to do that. I don't know if Milan Lucic does that. But frankly, does Milan Lucic want to be the guy that's going to go out there and fight when he's playing every single night?
Damn well better, otherwise he has no role.
As a 37-year-old, I can't imagine I'd want to be doing that. But how bad you want to play in the NHL? That's why I think they really feel like they need Milan Lucic. And JR's right. Tyler Tucker is one of those guys. But Tyler Tucker is now a sixth defenseman. And Tyler Tucker is somebody that they want the offense from, and you still need him to eat significant minutes. He might be a penalty killer for you.
They also need him to stay healthy, and when you're fighting regularly, it's harder to stay healthy.
They've got guys that can double shift. They got guys that can skate. They don't have guys that can go out there and make Liam O'Brien or Marcus Foligno say, do I really want to do this? Because I'm going to have to get into a fight tonight. That's what they need Milan Lucic for, and nobody else on this roster can do that.
I think he's your 14th forward.
I agree.
If he's here, I think that's the role. I don't think
always
he's a guy that is out there on any kind of a consistent basis. You pick your spots with him. And if you end up in one of those moments where, hey, tonight we've got a guy on the other side that we need to keep him under wraps, this is a Lucic night, right? And so maybe that's once every 7 games.
I was to say.
Is that a super important role? Maybe not to me. Maybe it is to some of the guys on the roster.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately part of the job, is making sure that your roster is comfortable on any given night. So if they see that as being more valuable than keeping around one of Texier and or Joseph, then so be it. I personally prefer keeping around guys that have a little bit more value on the ice, like with the ability to score. If you have any kind of an injury situation, I think that's more valuable to me. But I will defer to Doug Armstrong. He seems to know what he's doing.
And those guys have already been decided upon. Those guys, Stenberg, Dvorsky, they're going to be the call-ups when an injury happens to a top 9 player.
But if you bring Lucic here, you lose one of Joseph or Texier.
Or you just put Lucic through waivers.
Yeah,
but you have to have him on the roster, and when you do, you have to put somebody else through waivers because
sure,
of the numbers.
And at that point, they're going to have to cross that bridge when they get there. But I don't think you're as – I think you look at Joseph and Texier and say, are we worried that we might lose these guys through waivers? I don't know how many teams, once the season begins, can take on a $3 million contract when they claim them on waivers. Lucic's role was always going to be the 14th forward. There was this impression of like if he makes a team, he's playing every single night. He was never going to be the 12th forward for the team. It was always going to be Sundqvist as the 12th forward. The 13th forward was going to be one of Joseph or Texier, and the 14th was Lucic. And maybe this competition between Joseph and Texier needs to be carried over 2 weeks into the season. Maybe they need to see what this looks like throughout the year because they want to put guys into different positions. The other thing that we didn't talk about with JR is Joseph's playing the center position tonight, and Texier's playing the wing. So it's Joseph, Texier, and Lucic. They've already played Texier at center. They're experimenting with some of these guys on that role as the 13th forward. Lucic's role was always going to be, you're going to sit up in the press box probably for 3 weeks, but we need to make sure you're ready because when we play Utah or Minnesota or LA or Vancouver, those teams that like to go out there and tussle it up, That's where we need you to be ready. And that was always going to be his role.
Last thing I'd say on this, Stenberg, if they think he's actually pretty close to being ready for the NHL, it also allows you some flexibility with this, because then you don't have to worry as much about whether or not you lose one of Joseph or Texier.
Yeah.
Because now you have the flexibility in the event that, hey, Lucic isn't providing us what we thought. Let's go ahead and let's make this move. Then you could potentially call back up a guy like Stenberg in the event that you have any kind of an injury situation on your hands. All right. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're going to get back to the St. Louis Cardinals news from earlier today, give you our final thoughts on the press conference that was from Chaim Bloom, Bill Dewiit Jr., Bill Dewiit III. What did we learn today from their press conference, and what does it mean for their offseason? We'll get into that next year on BK. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, update from the first baseball postseason game this year. Tigers and Guardians are tied at 1 in the bottom of the 6th inning. Outs there. Tarek Skubal, 5 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts so far today. He is being matched, though, on the other side as Gavin Williams so far for the Cleveland Guardians. 6 scoreless, or 6 unearned. He has no earned runs allowed. 1 run allowed, though. 8 strikeouts, 1 walk for Gavin Williams, the young starter for the Cleveland Guardians. He's in his 3rd season.
Rob
had a
Cerfolio found.
3.1 ERA, so it's probably a good thing that the Cardinals are pulling from the Guardians.
No, you could call them the Cardians because that's what they're going to be now. They're going to be the Guardians. They're the Cardians.
All right, that allows us the opportunity to segue into the press conference from earlier today. Give you our final quick thoughts here. Alex, let's start out with you. We heard from Chaim Bloom. We heard from Bill Dewiit Jr., Bill Dewiit III. They didn't speak too much, though, if we're being open and honest about this earlier today. They had some follow-up stuff with the media afterwards. What did you learn today in the press conference availability?
Nothing. And I don't think I was going to learn anything from this press conference. I think what we heard was a different voice speaking the same message. And that's just where the Cardinals are at right now. They've been, 3 missed seasons of the postseason, a group of roster players that were supposed to be core players that have not become that. So now they're in another transition or runway or whatever the hell you want to call it. But you've got somebody who's in charge that is a different voice, a different mindset, and a different path of how to get to a successful stretch. And that's what the excitement is for Cardinals fans right now. I don't think there's a middle for Cardinals fans. You're either happy that Mo is gone and you're excited that Chaim Bloom is here, or you just think it's going to be the same message and you're frustrated with the ownership. And until you start to see signs of life, you're going to be stuck on one side or the other. And I mean, not learning anything isn't a bad thing for me. I do have some excitement of seeing what Chaim can do. I am really curious of what they do in terms of the talent evaluation of their own guys and other guys around Major League Baseball. And if Chaim is a man of his word, which is what he's talking about, they're going to have to make tough decisions on the guys that are here. But I don't think I learned anything. I just am now excited to see what the next stretch of Cardinals baseball is going to look like.
Yeah, I don't know if there is anything that was new that was learned. There were, I think, some things that were kind of reaffirmed, right? Like you just mentioned, like, hey, they're going to have some tough baseball decisions. Okay, good. So we're not going to do the whole, like, we have this roster that is jammed with all these position players, and Ali Marmol has to figure it out through 162. I think they're going to be making meaningful changes to that group and alleviate some of that pressure on Ali Marmol and, hey, this is your spot. You're running with it for next year. And they kind of confirmed that, hey, look, we don't mind if we win baseball games in 2026. That's not the ultimate goal, though. The ultimate goal is going to be setting us up for a long window of contention. Long term, I think, was the big key word for a lot of what Chaim Bloom was saying today, especially when he was asked questions. It was all about, hey, we got to find our own model, and we've got to find a way to set up long-term success for the Cardinals organization. It's not about 26, probably not about 2027. It's about how do we become what we want to be by 2028 would be my guess.
I'm with Alex. I don't think we learned much of anything today. I thought it was important to get out there and hear what Chaim Bloom had to say. He sets the roadmap for what he's anticipating the offseason is going to look like. These things are important. It's necessary. This is the drumbeat to the offseason, and there are certain steps that you have to take, the first of which is explaining to your audience, explaining to your fans what you plan to do and how you plan to accomplish those goals. But there's only so much that you can say publicly. And now comes the hard part. What they did today, it's the easiest test in the world to pass, especially if you're the new guy that's following somebody who, by the time that he left, was not, frankly, all that well-liked and was not somebody that people wanted to hear from anymore. So Chaim Bloom today, just by sounding different and by having a new voice and a new face, he was going to sound better to most Cardinals fans than what the old guy sounded like. So now it becomes a real test of, okay, what do you do with it? What does that mean now? And now comes the action part of it, and that's what I'm going to find so much more interesting. Who are you trading? And this is going to be over the course of multiple months. This is not something that's going to, suddenly appear tomorrow. but what's the plan with Brendan Donovan? What is your plan with Alec Burleson? How many of these players do you truly feel as though you can build around? Are you going to dip into free agency to maybe get some, I don't know, opportunistic signings? Guys that come here because, kind of like Nick Bukestad told us, hey, I signed with Arizona because I needed to recoup some value. Okay, who could that player be for the Cardinals where they sign here to recoup some value, and then maybe the Cardinals plan to trade them at the deadline? That's something else you can do as you're in the midst of a rebuild. So I'm really curious to see what those moves are. Today was just about going out there, saying the right things, sounding different, sounding invigorated, and presenting your plan to your audience. And I think they did, all things considered, I think Chaim did, all things considered, a pretty decent job.
You weren't impressed by the Dewitts?
That.
Yeah, the goal today was not creating new questions, right? Because that was the issue that happened last year. There were so many questions by the end of that press conference of, wait, you guys keep kind of counteracting.
Well,
Mo says it's about runway, then DeWitt say.
To be
well,
fair,
yeah,
that
but
also
when the first
happened
month?
because you didn't get an answer on payroll. Actually, you got an answer that's not really
yeah, but
the answer.
like that one I'm not like overly concerned about. Like, yes, it was a bad answer. They're not competing in 2026, or that's not their ultimate goal. So, like, do I really care what their payroll is? If I'm being honest, no, not really.
I agree. I think it's an easy question to answer, and so
I
it's
agree with
annoying that
yeah.
it was answered the way that it was. But does it ultimately matter? Not really, because it's not going to impact. I don't think it shouldn't. At least it should not impact what they do this offseason.
Look, the whole point of the whole thing that we wanted from this was clarity, and I think Chaim Bloom offered clarity. He offered the clarity that we can have right now, because I don't know if he really has clarity until teams start calling and asking about players. But to sit here and act like there's a direction, I'm not going to be naive to say that there's not really a direction. Right now, for the current direction, it's, well, we got to move some of these guys and see what we can get in return. The long-term direction is, look, we want to get back to a sustained winning window. That might take 3 years. That might take 5 years. It's going to come down to how you evaluate the other players. So I'm not going to sit here and act as if I know the direction of the Cardinals. You're not going to know that until the Cardinals start acquiring players and seeing them develop those players at the major league level.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll wrap a bow on this with the Rewind coming up next.
it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
So back.
You're up.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It is also free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Huge shout out to Doty for helping us out today on the engineering side of things. Also Bradford Bruns, who's been back in the studio for us. Without those two helping us out today, we would not have been able to go over to Chaim Bloom's press conference. So huge shout out to both of them for making that possible for us. And I think it gave you guys better content. I think it was good for us to be out there. And we, fingers crossed, it didn't work out today, but we're hopeful that Chaim Bloom at some point, either tomorrow or next week, will be able to join us here on the show. And I don't think that would have happened if we weren't there today. So, again, thanks to them for making that possible for us and for you guys. All right, we've given our thoughts on the Chaim Bloom press conference basically all of the day today. I do want to get to some of the other big storylines across sports. Let's start local, Alex, with the Blues, who will be back in action this evening against the Dallas Stars here on home ice for preseason action. What's the biggest thing you're looking for in tonight's preseason game?
I just think it's how some of these guys are adapting to their roles. Like, you're going to see Joseph play a fourth-line center role tonight. You're going to see Texier play on a fourth-line wing. Stenberg, as we talked about, is going to be playing a higher up in the lineup. Like, how are some of these guys fitting into their roles? Because you're not taking on a pushover roster tonight. You're taking on a roster that includes Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, Wyatt Johnston, Tyler Sagan, Matt Duchene, Mikko Rantanen, Miro Heiskanen. Like, you're going up against the big dogs in this one. And right now you haven't won a preseason game, but it's been a ton of dudes that haven't been in the roster. So, yeah, I want to see what some of these roles are starting to look like. And then Lucic. I do think there's going to be a lot of eyes on what Milan Lucic does tonight. There's no enforcer on the other side that plays for Dallas, but they do have some big boys, including this Leon Bichelle. So I think right now it's how do guys fit into roles, and then after tonight, my guess is Thursday against Ottawa is going to look like what opening night is going to look like.
Big news on the NFL side of things as Lamar Jackson, it was announced by the local media in Baltimore, is expected to miss at least this week, possibly multiple weeks. This weekend, the Ravens play against the Houston Texans. If they were to lose that, they'd be 1-4, and the following week is against the LA Rams. That'd be putting them at 1-5 potentially going into this year's bye week for the Ravens. If that is indeed the case, sets them well behind the 8 ball and potentially getting to the playoffs this year. Gave our thoughts on that earlier today. Final thing here before we get out. The playoffs begin officially today in Major League Baseball. The Tigers are up 2-1 against the Cleveland Guardians in the bottom of the 7th inning. T-Bone, let's get into some of our thoughts on the final 3 games today. Alex, I'm curious your thoughts as well. Padres against the Cubbies. Who do you have in that one?
I've got the Cubs.
Yeah, I got the Cubs.
Really? In this game or in the series?
In the series.
In the game. I think they sweep the Padres.
2-0, yeah.
Okay, I've got the Padres in this series. Red Sox versus the Yankees. Who do you have in this one?
I got Red Sox.
I've got Red Sox as well. I think they're going to shut down Judge in that lineup.
I think the Red Sox will find a way to get it done as well. I like their pitching. And in the final game of the night, the series that we've all been looking forward to, Reds versus the Dodgers.
I've got the Reds.
Do you really?
No, not that dumb. I've got the Dodgers.
I've got the Dodgers, but I think it goes 3 games.
I think so, too.
I think they get shut down by one of these great arms that the Reds
Is
have.
Hunter Green pitching game 1 for him?
Yeah. And then game 2 is like Littell and Lodolo doing like some weird piggyback
Oh,
thing.
good. That'll work, Cincinnati.
Yeah. That might be the game they lose.
All right, we'll react to some of those tomorrow here on the show. We appreciate all of you tuning in today here on BK and Ferrario. For Alex and T-Bone and Bradford and Doty, I'm BK. Talk to you guys tomorrow. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101.